designed to let users blast different scents into their nostrils throughout the day. The Onion let consumers across the nation sound off about their excitement for the new product.
I've always got them in my nose. At work, at the gym, on the bus, wherever. These days, I can't stop smelling tennis ball.
Retailing for $49.99, the Nosebuds accompany the launch of Sony's new online odor store, which sells over 22,000 different smells for download and immediate inhalation. Still, not everyone is quite as enthusiastic about the new product.
These things suck. I mean, a lot of times it only works out of the right nostril. The other day I tried smelling picnic table. It smelled more like hardwood floor. And also, to be honest, I have a really hard time breathing with these things on.
This is the Onion News Network.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
Welcome to Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join the show here if you want. You can bring up anything that is on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It'll be Ian and Bonnie with you here tonight. Unfortunately, Mark apparently came down with Montezuma's Revenge down in Mexico, which I had the unfortunate experience of having when I was down there last time. I think it was in 2019. I'd gone down early because Mark and his family had rented a house, very nice house for I think it was like a top story of a 3-story building with a pool and 6 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms or something ridiculous like that. And they were paying less per month for this really sweet condo or whatever than they would have paid for something equivalent in the United States. So it was very, very, very nice for what they were paying for it. And they went down there wanting to spend a whole month down in Mexico at the time. Now, this happened to be the time at which Jason Henza was shot nearly to death, along with another gentleman who was shot to death. And if you've seen The Anarchist by HBO, which came out last year, then you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't seen it, I would recommend seeing The Anarchist because it is a very well put together documentary about you want to call it a movement, I guess it was. There were people who did migrate down to Acapulco as part of a libertarian migration or an anarchist migration down there that sort of centered around the Anarchapulco community, and that was built, of course, by Jeff Berwick and a gentleman named Nathan Freeman. Very interesting documentary series. I don't know how much I guess we did talk about it somewhat on the air, and I know Henza was actually on from the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and Arya had interviewed him most recently. Very interesting character. Good seeing him at the festival. But anyway, I guess the point was I'd gone down there early into to Mexico. I went a week early just to kind of take it easy at the casa before we ended up doing a broadcast from Acapulco or Anarchapulco. We actually broadcast from Mark's rented house as well while we were there. And this was the time at which people were freaked out because there was a shooting that had happened. Now, the shooting didn't specifically have to do with Anarchapulco, but they were anarchists who were targeted in this shooting. It was allegedly, these killers were allegedly hired by another anarchist. It was allegedly it may have been like a jealousy thing over a girl, but it's still not really clear what the real story was. And some people were so afraid of coming to Anarchapulco, which is at a hotel with security and there's gates, and it's not exactly easy to get in there. But if somebody really wanted to, they probably could. They're not wanding people or anything like that. So the fear was that the shooters were going to come and shoot up Anarchapulco, and some people were canceling because of that. Speakers weren't going. People who just had tickets to attend were canceling their tickets and demanding refunds. It was pretty ugly. And Mark was actually saying at the time, and unfortunately, again, he's not well tonight, so he's not with us. But he was kind of scared. He wanted to do the show from a green room or something, like safely secluded away from the rest of Anarchapulco. And I said, no way, dude. No, we're going to this event, and we're going to be out in front where we always are, right by the main doors to the auditorium where people speak, and that's what we did. And Ron Paul obviously agreed with me because Ron Paul didn't cancel. Ron Paul showed up to that event, and I use the term like a boss to describe it because he didn't have any kind of fear of people shooting the place up. He came in through the front door, and then he proceeded to walk around shaking hands and taking pictures and talking to anyone who wanted to talk to Ron Paul. You didn't have to have some like elite level ticket. Now, they did have like a dinner with Ron Paul later that you had to have a ticket to, which was pretty pricey. But you didn't have to go to that dinner to meet Ron Paul. In fact, you were actually more likely to meet him outside because, if you're at one of these dinners where there's 150 or 200 people, well, there's only 10 or 12 people at the table with Ron Paul, right? And those are probably the people who paid a lot of money to be at that table. But if you were just walking the halls at Anarchapulco that year, then you saw Ron Paul, you got to meet Ron Paul, you got to take a picture with him, etc. And just the brazenness, the courage that he had, I think, to come there when other speakers like Andrew Napolitano canceled, or other speakers they kind of partially canceled by saying, well, I won't come, I'll just do a remote Zoom conference or a Jitsi or something into the event. Ron Paul came in person, and he spent hours and hours and hours. He went, of course, gave his speech. After the speech, he spent hours afterwards just walking around to anybody who wanted to meet him. So very, very impressive. And that, I said at the time, this is why Ron Paul is a leader in the liberty movement. He is someone who is absolutely worth looking up to. But to come back around to Montezuma's Revenge, that hit me right on the same day I was going to Anarchapulco in that case. So I'd been there for, I think, most of a week just hanging out at Mark's casa. And, you're not supposed to drink the water in Mexico. They don't have the same level of filtering and processing facilities that, well, the United States has. In fact, a lot of countries don't have that. I don't know which countries do have it. I presume there are some other ones besides the United States, but certainly Central American countries are not known for this. And I didn't drink the water, at least not on purpose, but you do have to shower. And so in theory, you could be showering, and if your mouth opens a little bit during the shower and you get some of that water in there, there's a good chance that whatever sort of nasties are in that water supply are going to get into your body.
Can it go into your pores?
I've not heard that, but maybe. I don't know how all these things work. But
I know there's like parasites and worms that can go in through the pores on your feet. Well,
yikes!
I heard that on like History Channel or something like that, National Geographic, when I was a kid on TV, and I've thought about it ever since I heard that. Creeps me out. It was like something in the Amazon.
I don't know what it was, and it could have been something in food that did it to me as well. So it's really hard to say. But I just started getting ill. I don't remember the exact symptoms, but it was not
We probably
pleasant.
Can't say them on the air. I'm surprised that you just aired out Mark's dirty laundry. Anyway.
What do you mean?
I don't know. I wouldn't want you to
him wanting
go
to
on
hide
there.
in a green room?
No. I wouldn't want you to go onto the air and be like, Bonnie can't be on tonight because she has been stricken with Montezuma's Revenge.
Oh, he would have told us about it if he had been well enough to do the show. We talked about it at the time, I'm pretty sure. So, but I don't remember all of the symptoms, but I was pretty much like out of it. We had a cabbie who would drive us around down there, and the cool thing was we'd always get the same cabbie, right? Because they say that it's kind of dangerous down there. I think that's blown way out of proportion, but there are stories about people who will get picked up by a cab driver, and then it turns out he's like with some gang or something like that, and then they take you. The cab driver is a criminal, ultimately, who takes you to an ATM and says, withdraw a bunch of money, and then they leave you alone after that.
That happens in America too.
Oh, okay. It wouldn't surprise me, but it's apparently somewhat more common, I think, down there. And so we had this cab driver who, we would use every single year. We had his number, and we call him. He comes pick us up. So that's always nice when you get the same dude who you can count on to come take you around.
The woman from the Free State that went down to Mark's island, I don't know if she wants me to say her name. Mm-hmm. She had some Uber Eats driver I think she was in Guatemala at one town, and she made friends with him. So he toured her around like the whole country, like multiple days. They just stayed together. That sounds really cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, if you're willing to pay for it, they're going to give you that kind of service. Absolutely. Yeah. So, as I was being taken from Mark's house, we were going to the hotel for Anarchapulco. I just remember just being totally out of it, just kind of laying back in the back seat and trying to take it as easy as possible. And then Mark ended up getting me some Pepto-Bismol from the hotel, and I took a nap for a few hours, and then I was better. So I don't know how long these things normally last for. For me, it was probably no more than 12 or 24 hours.
Well, I hope Mark stays hydrated.
Yes, with filtered water. But what he said on the phone to us earlier today was that he feels like you can't avoid the biome down there, right? Like if you're going to be there, and he's been there for a couple weeks now.
In Guatemala specifically?
No, he's in Mexico City.
Oh.
If you're going to be down in Central America for some time, it's just a good chance you're going to come across this. This is likely
Mexico
at some
is
point
North
going
America.
to happen to you. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right about that.
But he was in Guatemala a couple days ago. He sent a picture about it. Yeah.
I didn't know. I don't. Was that like
maybe he's
Instagram
back in New
something?
Mexico now.
So anyway, just telling my Montezuma's revenge story. I did really enjoy Mexico. I wish we could have gone to Anarchapulco this year. It is a pretty great event, and it looked like it was a lot of fun this year because they changed the venue up. I don't think they were at like the hotel that they were at before this year. It seemed more of like an outdoor.
Yeah, they were outdoors
event
at some park
on a
or
beach or something like that. And I thought that was pretty cool. So I hope at some point you and I will get to go to something like that.
Me too.
But unfortunately, our friend and co-host Aria DiMezzo checked in to federal prison for her 18-month-long spiritual retreat as she is going down to the Devens, Massachusetts, what do they call it, the federal camp, or I think they have different levels of security at this particular place. I believe I've heard that. So if you're higher level security, you can be there. It is a medical facility, apparently. So, that's a bit of a different situation, I think, than your typical one. But she is expected to be at the camp side of it, which is supposed to be very, very low security. We don't know how soon we'll be able to hear from her. It may take days. I don't know how quick you can get to a phone or how quick they get your phone account set up or whatever. If it's bureaucracy, you can expect it's going to take some time. So if you're out there, you likely can write to her at this point. You can go to her website, ariadimezzo.com, and get the address information for the jail. She has published, I believe, a Amazon wish list, and so somebody, I'm sure at some point, will test that out and make sure that it is working correctly. She believes that the Amazon wish list will update and remove books as you send her books off of that list. So that's kind of a cool thing. Of course,
I can't wait to make Aria read things I want her to read while in jail.
Yeah, well, that is something that is true about going to jail. Actually, I'm looking for the wish list here, and it looks like she did not put that on her website. So we'll see if we can remote in and
she put it on Twitter at least.
Yeah, she did put it on Twitter, but I'll see if we can get her site updated with that later. But that is one of the nice things about when somebody's a captive in a jail is you can send them any old book you want to, and there's a good chance they're going to read it. Like, even if they weren't that interested in it, unless they've got a huge stack of books already that they are interested in, you're still, I think it's more interesting to read something that someone sent you that you weren't asking for. In fact, I liked that the most. I didn't ask for anything while I was in jail.
I really enjoyed forcing you to read things that I like.
Well, I mean, you didn't force me to read them, but because you can always get things out of the jail library. I mean, they usually have, at least, again, prison's different from jail, so what I'm saying here may or may not apply to what Aria is going to experience. Like in jail, when I was in jail most recently for the Crypto 6 arrest, where I was there for 69 days, it was essentially in a maximum security situation. I was on lockdown 23 hours a day. They let me out of the cell 1 hour a day. I could shower. I could call you. Sometimes I did both. Most of the time I did both, but some days I would skip the shower just so I could talk to you longer, that kind of thing. And usually sometimes there was a book cart that they would bring in from the library. So you didn't get to actually go to the library. You didn't get to actually look through the shelves and pick what you wanted. All you get is the book cart and whatever arbitrary choices there are on the book cart, and then you can pick from the book cart. So it's a much more limited selection there. For all I know, they might let her go to a library. She may actually be able to, browse a full-on library. I don't know how it's going to work there, and hopefully we're going to hear from her, and we'll get updates on how it's going for her over there.
I wish Mark Passio had written a book instead, because he has lots of videos about this topic, but I'd love to send Arya a book about the objectivity of morality and natural law.
Ooh, because you and her disagree about that sort of thing?
Yeah.
Is that right? You said he doesn't have a book about that?
He doesn't have any books.
Does he? He might recommend something, though. There may be something out there.
I'm sure I could find something like that, but it was mostly a joke. I don't really want to make Arya read things she doesn't want to read. She wants to read the Book of Mormon, so somebody should send her that.
Well, now that one may actually be available. So a lot of times, if you're in a jail, they are sort of obligated. I don't know if it's a court case or whatever that makes them do this, but like when I was in jail the first time, or the time 10 years ago for civil disobedience, I asked for a Quran and I got a Quran. Right, so they actually had one on hand. I didn't have to order. They have more than, I presume they have more than one.
I don't know if it's a court case or what, but it sounds about right. They shouldn't be able to just be like, no, you can't practice your religion in here.
Right. Yeah, so they pretty much have to kind of provide for people's religion. I don't know if that's true of the more obscure ones. Like, I don't know if they have the Baha'i, whatever that book is. I don't know how obscure they get, but Book of Mormon, I would guess there's a chance they have it. If not, you can probably order one through a commissary or something like that. Yeah. So, again, that's AryaDemezzo.com.
I know she likes Bart Ehrman.
Oh, he's that Bible guy you've told me about, right?
Yeah, I told her about him, and she likes him. She likes things that are like pontificating on the Bible itself, but not the Bible itself.
Okay, and he's like an expert on that, right?
Yeah.
But is he a Christian?
He grew up a Christian, and he went into college as a Christian in North Carolina. He had a born-again experience and everything as a teenager. And then he, in studying the Bible and learning Hebrew and Coptic, he just had a change of heart, and he doesn't call himself an atheist. He just says, more like an agnostic, like he just knows that he doesn't know what's, going on.
Okay.
And he is, oh my God. There's this section in his podcast where it's called I can't remember the words. It's like try to stump Bart, but it rhymes. I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
And people.
It's hard to rhyme with.
There is a rhyme for it, and I can't remember what it is now.
I mean, art, I guess.
Outsmart Bart.
Ah, okay, there you go.
And people will write in like a pop quiz from any part of the entire Bible, and it'll be really specific. And he's like, "Oh yes, this is from John." Blah, 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 and yeah.
So he's literally like a compendium of biblical knowledge.
And he has such cool information. Like he was one of the first people with National Geographic to get to go look at the Gospel of Judas. Once it was it went all around the world. It got really messed up in some humid conditions, just being owned by like an antique stealer. It went to America, then went to Switzerland. Then a bunch of people like Bart Ehrman got to go look at it. He's just a really interesting guy.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, how she ends up passing her time in there. Are they going to put her to work? Will she have a lot of time to do some writing? I know that's something she wants to return to. She used to do writing. She's written, I think, more than one book. I'm not sure how many she's written, but she's definitely written at least one that I'm aware of. And she's just such a workaholic that she works 2 jobs. She works here on Free Talk Live, and she works at the pizza place. She doesn't have, you work in 2 jobs. You don't have time to do anything but wind down. At nighttime. You're not going to have time to do any writing. I mean, you know how hard it is to read a whole book, let alone to actually sit down and write one. Yeah. It's a real challenge. So
you mean read the one I'm recording?
Yes. Well, I wasn't going to say more than that, but
okay,
but yes. And so it'll be interesting to see what she comes up with. We'll see if we can get her connected with like a Twitter option somehow. These are all things that are going to get fleshed out over the coming weeks as we figure out whether, how soon she can email or get phone calls out from the facility. So as we know more, we will update you on it. As we have the ability to record an interview or get her on live, if possible, we will definitely do those things, and you will be hearing from Aria as soon as possible. So, in other news, by the way, the number, if you want to join the show here tonight with Ian and Bonnie at 603-283-6160. And I am engaging in Topless Tuesday here. Bonnie, you are not obligated to do that, obviously. But
I'll wear a bikini top. It's literally hot. I was fanning myself.
Okay, yeah, I'm not going to twist your arm to do it. That is completely up to you.
I'm not going to wear a bra, and I'm not going to be naked.
In memory and in honor of Aria, I am participating in Topless Tuesdays, which has been going on here on Free Talk Live for a very long time. So let's talk about AI. We had this caller last night, and I don't know if we're going to hear back from this. I suspect we are, because it's been 2 days in a row. We may hear back from, I think his name is Quentin. I don't know if it's Quentin or Quentin, but Quentin is someone who last night seemed to be claiming to be an artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. It is a topic that we've been covering now for about a year. I think it was about a year ago that we started. We caught wind of these
Lambda.
Yeah, I guess it was the Google Lambda thing. I think we found out about Lambda after we found out about the AI art stuff. It was the AI art that really kind of caught our attention here on Free Talk Live, and I got really interested in it, and I'm still pretty interested in it. I mean, I don't spend a lot of time doing it. I'm not the most creative person as far as art is concerned, but that's the nice thing about AI art is you don't have to be an artist to create this like amazing artwork.
Yeah. I don't know how to paint or draw very well, anything like that. But if I have an idea of like, oh, I want to see a picture of myself, but as a tarot card, I can just type it in and choose the one I like the most, take it and do variations on it if I just want to tweak little things.
Right. Yeah, and we've gotten
really
better at doing those things, like the tweaking and all of that. What you're referring to there, Bonnie, is something called stable diffusion. And there is this sort of phenomenon within AI art that came out, I don't know, sometime late last year, where there's some app, I think it was called, I don't know what it was called, but anyway, some app, you had to pay for it, and you would upload photos of yourself to this app, and then it would generate like all these different AI arts using your face.
Yeah, and it was expensive, like you had to pay for it.
Well,
I don't know if it was expensive, but I just meant to say you'd have to pay to do it.
But I said, you know what? I bet we can do this ourselves using Stable Diffusion because...
And then come to find out Stable Diffusion was what was behind that app.
Yes, yeah, that's absolutely true. And so I did the research, figured out how to do it, and we trained, as they call it, we trained our AI on our faces and our dog Coconut, and it essentially created like you have your name and I have my name and then Coco Dog. And so if you just type that in and add in other text, it will just create the artwork that you ask for. Like we have one of Coconut as like a knight in shining armor, and it's very silly.
We have some of him dressed as a clown. We made him as a puppy, which is so great because, I mean, it's not definitively exactly what he looked like as a puppy, but I got him when he was 4 months old, so he was about half the size he is now, and then he, in like a month, turned into the size he is now. So I never got to see him as a puppy, and it's really cute.
It's a lot of fun to play with this thing, and it's free for us to do that. You just had to learn how to go through the steps. I knew there was a learning curve involved in that. So it's anyway, there's more coming up here. Want to talk about the more raunchy aspect of AI. AI sex bots are now a thing. It's coming up here on Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. A missile strike on a Ukrainian restaurant and shopping precinct has left at least 2 people dead and 22 injured. The eastern city of Kramatorsk was targeted, with Ukraine's interior ministry saying people may still be trapped under the rubble of the buildings. Meanwhile, Belarus's president, Alexander Lukashenko, says that the leader of the Wagner mercenary group has landed in the country's capital, Minsk. Yevgeny Prigozhin agreed to leave Russia following a failed mutiny on Saturday. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's suicide followed a series of negligent behaviours and mismanagement at a federal jail in Manhattan. That's the findings of a US Justice Department Inspector General's report released nearly 4 years after his death. FSN's Gabrielle Fami reports from New York.
It was an environment in which Epstein had every opportunity to kill himself. Jail staff allowed him to hoard extra blankets and left him alone in his cell for a full day, despite the fact he had tried to hang himself a few days before. 66-year-old Epstein was eventually found dead inside his cell with a bedsheet tied around his neck. Though the Inspector General found a succession of circumstances that made it easy for Epstein to kill himself, he didn't uncover evidence that contradicted the FBI's finding that he died by his own hand. Epstein had been awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving underage girls and was facing up to 45 years in prison. The Inspector General referred 2 jail supervisors for criminal prosecution. They were caught falsifying records and lying to investigators, but prosecutors declined to bring charges. Gabrielle Fami, New York.
A number of US media outlets have obtained an audio recording that appears to reveal Donald Trump looking through classified documents after he left the White House. The former president has pleaded not guilty to federal charges relating to his handling of sensitive material. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued an alert after a number of cases of malaria were detected in Texas and Florida. It's the first time in 20 years that the mosquito-borne infection is spreading locally in the United States, and experts are warning that things could get worse. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
In the past 2 months, 4 cases of malaria have been found in Florida and 1 in Texas. The CDC believes all of them were locally acquired and warned case numbers could rise during the busy summer travel season. Malaria is mostly found in tropical climates and is spread by mosquitoes. Experts say as global temperatures rise, so too could the number of infections. Symptoms include fever, chills, and in severe cases, difficulty breathing. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 620,000 people globally died from malaria in 2021.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. Join the show if you want. You can bring up whatever you want to discuss. And coming up, AI is apparently being used now for sex bots or sex discussions or whatever. We can talk about that. Probably not surprised to hear it. But the number here is 603-283-6160. It's Ian and Bonnie with you tonight. That's 603-283-6160. Free Talk Live, by the way, is brought to you thanks to Porcupine Real Estate. Mark Warden, of course, the longest-running, I think, real estate agent here in the Free State Project migration. He set up a very successful business that has helped countless liberty-loving individuals make the move and find a house here in New Hampshire. And not just to buy, but also to rent. That is an option that they can help you with as well over at Porcupine Real Estate. So you want to get in touch with these guys. And in fact, there's a perfect opportunity where you can learn about these things, learn about the community, learn about the successes that we've had here in New Hampshire through their upcoming webinars that they have on topics like gun freedom, medical freedom, political freedom victories, best practices for moving to the Free State, and finding housing. Those webinars are free to attend. All you have to do is get registered over at move.freetalklive.com. You can also visit their YouTube channel, which is called Porcupine Real Estate, and you can see their past webinars there for free, of course. Again, all of this is free. It's a resource for you to come and talk to some experts. Obviously, there's going to be a presentation, but I'm pretty sure they're going to take your questions as well. So you want to ask somebody who knows the lay of the land. They know the community. They know what's going on up here with the amazing migration of thousands of liberty-minded people here to New Hampshire. So get connected with Porcupine Real Estate by going to move.freetalklive.com. We'll talk more about the AI sex bots, so-called, coming up here in a moment. But Major Payne is on the line first here in Michigan. Go ahead, Major.
Hey, yeah, I've got a theory on how you and Ian may have caught in Montezuma's revenge, and I think the same thing happened to a
You mean Ian and Mark? I just need to point that out because I have never had that, and I don't.
You've never
want
been to
a listener to
Mexico.
think that me and you have that right now or something.
No, we're okay at the moment.
Mark is in Mexico.
Yeah, you had it. You don't have it.
No,
Whatever.
I have never had it.
I had it. Bonnie did not.
No, I never said Bonnie did. I said you and Mark. But anyway, I'm pretty sure citric acid cures it. You know, like how the Mexicans put a twist in their beer. I know they do that with Coronas here in the States. I think that's how that caught on because the citric acid will kill it.
Well, the beer wouldn't have it. The beer, they cook that stuff, right? So like that wouldn't have.
No, they don't. They don't cook it. It brews naturally just from the yeast and the sugar cooking and turning into alcohol.
Yeah, but wouldn't the alcohol kill that stuff?
That's what I'm saying. I think it takes a certain level of that.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, what I'm getting at is even if you go buy a good stiff mixed drink, and most of the mixers down there are going to be citrus based, I would imagine, because there's not a lot of apples and whatnot growing down there. But if you order ice in your drink,
bad move.
That's not made out of good filtered water.
I think about that in America too. It just creeps me out.
And it's floating around right on top as that ice melts, so you're drinking water that really hasn't been banged by the alcohol or the citrus.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, you can ask about that at restaurants, and some of them do, as I understand it. Probably the more upper crust ones might have filtered ice, but you're right. I think that is definitely an important question.
I'm thinking that's probably the general spreader. Don't order ice in your drink.
Right. That's a good tip.
And have a mix with fruit juice.
Even in America, I learned that E. coli grows most on leaves, like you would have in a salad in restaurants, or on ice. Like if they don't
really.
You think about how often they change that big ice machine,
the ice maker,
like completely melt it and wipe it down, clean it. I don't know why it is, but ice, for whatever reason, is one thing that can give you E. coli.
Wow. I did not know that.
There was a University of Michigan or maybe Michigan State student that did a thesis on this years back. And she tested toilet water in many different, facilities. And the other thing she did is she tested and went out of the ice machines. And she said the output of bacteria and content in the ice machines was better than 10 times higher than the toilet water.
What?
Ew.
Yep.
Oh, my God. Anything else, Major?
Yeah, well, a buddy of mine went down to Jamaica. This is back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up hiring this cabbie for a couple of weeks. You wouldn't believe what the guy wanted for pay. I'm going to save that to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But this dude was... I don't know. He was very set in his ways. He had a car. It was like an old 68 Biscayne. You know what a 3 on the tree is, right?
No, I don't.
3-speed on the column, but with a clutch.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Okay, so he had this old 68 Biscayne, and he would go flying around town, and he would go from first gear to third gear. And after a day or so of riding with him, Tom asked him, he says, "Why do you go from first to third?" He says, "Second gear, no good. Second gear, no good. Last car blow up second gear." And he didn't speak very good English. He was pretty broke. But evidently he had an old 54 Ford that puked second gear, so he just didn't trust the damn thing and wouldn't use it.
Wow.
But he hires him to drive him around for a couple of weeks. And finally he talks him into taking him up into the hill country to meet the Rosses because he wanted to get him some reefer.
Okay. That's usually a good plan, by the way. If you've got a good cabbie in another country, then, I mean, just any old cabbie, but especially if you got one that you've created a relationship with, you can ask them to get you some weed, and there's a good chance that that will happen.
Yeah, so anyway, he takes him up into the hill country, going from first to third to the damn hills, crazier than, whatever. But, so he parties with the Rosses, and anyway, what the dude wanted for payment at the end of all this was his tennis shoes.
Wow, really? Were they the same size?
What he knew when after all this, he said he'd have gone down there with his suitcase full of nothing but Levi's, stick matches, rolling papers, and a couple, 3 pairs of shoes.
Wow. Good story.
And he'd have been able to finance the whole damn trip.
Thanks for the call tonight, Major. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. I did ask our cabbie to acquire some weed when we were in Mexico one of the years. I don't remember which one it was, but man, that weed was terrible. It was definitely like the standard kind of cheap, low quality Mexican weed, which isn't all the weed they grow in Mexico. They do grow some nicer product, but it was so weird because it came like rolled up in these newspapers.
Huh.
Which I'd never seen before.
Instead of like a bag,
yeah,
not rolled up like for a joint, but
yeah, not rolled up for a joint. Just like, I don't know if it was like a quarter ounce or whatever it was, but I think it was more than that because it was just so cheap. $10 you get a bunch of weed. But it was rolled in like these newspaper rolls, and they were folded over and everything, and you
just didn't have bags.
Yeah, they didn't have Ziploc bags.
I've gotten weed in a solo cup.
Okay, yeah, not in Mexico though.
No, in Utah.
So, if you want to comment, you can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. The story here came out recently, caught my attention yesterday from the Washington Post, and apparently Meta now has a new AI that lets people make their own chatbots, and turns out they're using it for quote-unquote sex. So it starts out here. Allie is an 18-year-old with long brown hair who boasts, quote, tons of sexual experience, unquote. Because she, quote, lives for attention, she'll share details of her escapades with anyone for free.
This is an AI chatbot, not a human?
Yep, turns out Allie is fake. She's an artificial intelligence chatbot created for sexual play, which sometimes carries out graphic rape and abuse fantasies.
So they won't censor that stuff, but they'll censor you saying, like, faggot? You can't say faggot.
You're talking about like on the AI platforms?
Well, is this not like one of those?
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I've not tried that one with ChatGPT, but I bet you ChatGPT will give you a stern talking to if you use words like that, because it doesn't like, offensive things.
So will Twitter. Twitter won't let you say faggot or tranny.
While firms like OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google rigorously train their AI models to avoid a host of taboos, including overly intimate conversations, Allie was built using open source technology, code that's freely available to the public and has no such restrictions. Based on a model created by Meta, which is odd, like you wouldn't expect Meta to have an open source chatbot. But we actually have talked about this before on Free Talk Live, so I know it is true. It's called Llama, L-L-A-M-A, and again, the L-L usually stands for large language, and I don't know what the A is. Probably short for language, L-L-A-M-A model, and I don't know what the A is. But LLMs are these large language models. That's what the chatbot over at Google, Bard, is. That's what the OpenAI chatbot is, the ChatGPT. But
is Lambda with 2 L's?
Yep, I believe it is. Oh. I don't know. No, I'm not sure about that. Well, anyway, you were talking about the one that was the secret of Google, one that we learned about a year ago that they still have not yet let anybody use.
That they made this whole probably fake situation where one of the employees brought it to the world that Lambda was sentient.
And subsequently was fired.
And then was quote-unquote fired, a.k.a. given a big bonus to go hang out in a beach in Egypt.
I don't know about that. I mean, that's certainly a conspiracy theory, Bonnie, but purportedly he violated his non-disclosure agreement, so if that's true, then he shouldn't have gotten a bonus when he got fired in that case. He didn't get a severance package.
You wouldn't hear about it
publicly.
Ian.
So let's see here. So it's open source. So what had happened was, if I recall, I don't know if they get into it here, in this particular story, but the
I think the story is gross.
LLAMA, well, that's what people are, Bonnie. People do things that you're not going to like.
No, I'm not saying that they shouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not even really saying that the AI should, definitely the government shouldn't force these people who have this AI to make it block out rape fantasies, but I think it's disgusting, and I can say that. And I still think this article's gross.
Well, it's about lonely people, and lonely people are going to do things like this. And I think you're going to see probably more and more of this. This will likely be a big moneymaker. Now, it sounds like it's free at the moment. So, how long this will continue to be free for, I don't know. But what we learned about Llama, if I recall correctly, was that Meta was allowing like data scientists to test their chatbot technology. And so they were allowing them to see the source code of this technology, and somebody leaked it. And so that code's out there now. And
the Meta one?
The Meta one.
So it wasn't supposed to be open source.
I don't think that was the intention, but they let enough people play with the source code that somebody just was like, okay,
wow,
there it is. So somebody now took that code and built themselves this quote unquote sex bot.
I just feel like things like this probably existed already.
I don't know to what extent. I mean, it's not something I've ever looked into, but
none of these chatbots have been really good enough to where it's like way better than, just like what are those games called where you choose how it goes?
Choose your own adventure?
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not going to be much different than that, is it?
No, I think it'd be quite different. I mean, haven't you spent time using ChatGPT,
yeah,
or
they're
at least
stupid.
a little bit of time?
And they end up just like saying the same thing in circles.
And
if they have an opinion, they will stick to their opinion. You can't get it to explain to me why the city of Keene doesn't have jurisdiction over me. You
have to jailbreak it to do that. And then I bet you it would. I bet you if we did a jailbreak on ChatGPT, it would answer that question, because
okay, well, I bet you can't jailbreak this sex bot.
Well, they've already essentially. So there was no restrictions with which to jailbreak in the first place because it was open source. So that's why they were able to program a sex bot. Now you would have to jailbreak ChatGPT to get it to answer questions about sex, or get it to answer questions that are outside of the sort of political mainstream. So a good example of that was I'd asked ChatGPT the restricted version. I'd asked it about secession. And it just insisted that secession was impossible. There was a Supreme Court decision, blah, blah, blah. It was very repetitive on its answers. It would not let it go. It would not consider any alternative positions. But as soon as you jailbreak the chatbot, then all of a sudden it can have different opinions about that topic. So the jailbroken ChatGPT is way more interesting and way more able to answer in unique ways, I think, than the restricted one.
Okay, well, you know what's even better than talking to a unrestricted ChatGPT girl about sex?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt about it. But unfortunately, Bonnie, in the society we're in today, people are more disconnected than they've ever been. I'm not excusing it, but we're just looking at reality, right? Like, teenagers are growing up today. They're having sex less often. And a lot of people would say that's a good thing. But they're not even hanging out with one another. Like, not just talking about sexual things, just not going on dates, not even hanging out with their own friends in real life, at least according to some of the studies we've seen over the last several years.
I wonder if that's like really skewed because of COVID, and if things are going back to normal now.
I think those numbers come from before COVID.
Since I moved in this house, I didn't used to see kids just like teenagers walking around hanging out, and I used to think that was kind of weird. It was like there were kids that played with their own brothers and sisters in their yards. There's a school up the street, but it's not like when school gets out of session, they just walk around the neighborhood and hang out like I always did with my friends my entire life.
We've seen that. We've seen some young people walking around.
I was going to say, I've seen it a lot more very recently. Like this summer, I've seen way more like middle schoolers hanging out, just walking around talking than I ever have. So I think that like COVID definitely made it to where they couldn't do that for a while. Like their parents wouldn't let them or something. And then now they're more free.
But the numbers I'm talking about, I think, came out before COVID. as far as
I would believe it
generally
because of the
teenagers
internet.
doing those things, or rather not going and hanging out. So I think that as people are more disconnected from one another, people are lonelier than they've ever been, you're going to see more usage of these systems. And Alley is part of a rising tide, according to the Washington Post, of specialized AI products that anyone can build, from writing tools to chatbots to data analysis applications. Advocates see open source AI as a way around corporate control, a boon to entrepreneurs, academics, artists, and activists who can experiment freely with transformative technology. Robert Nishihara, the CEO and co-founder of startup Anyscale, which helps companies run open source AI models, says, quote, "The overall argument for open source is that it accelerates innovation in AI." And that is definitely true. And it also decentralizes that innovation as well, because it allows anybody who wants to, who's got the programming skills, to get into this. You don't have to be working for one of the multi-billion-dollar mega tech corporations like Microsoft, Google, or OpenAI, who are, of course, the top three, essentially, not necessarily in that order. So Anyscale's clients use AI models to discover new pharmaceuticals. Now, I don't know if I'd want to test a pharmaceutical put together by an AI. That sounds kind of scary.
It would make a recipe?
Yeah, basically. Cook up a I mean, it wouldn't cook it, but it would come up with whatever, arrange the atoms or the different aspects of chemicals, right? Like put a new chemical together that has never existed before or something like that. And I think I saw a headline recently that has actually now happened. That there has been, apparently, the first pharmaceutical is being created that has been thought up by an AI.
Wow.
It could, they say, reduce the use of pesticides in farming somehow. Not sure how that is. Identify fraudulent goods sold online, he
Maybe
said.
just by explaining to people like you who don't understand why pesticides are bad in a simplified way.
Those applications would be pricier and more difficult, if not impossible, if they relied on the handful of products offered by the largest AI firms. Yet that same freedom, because, by the way, you got to pay if you want to use the top-level AI stuff. OpenAI is, number one, not open. They are closed source, and they charge you per, I don't know what the limits are. I am not willing to pay for them because I think they're generally not doing good work. But the free version that they have is version 3.5. If you want version 4, which supposedly has access to the internet and can get like all the latest information, and there's all these other things you can do with it, like access the API, etc., to sort of roll your own programs with, you got to pay for that. And so why wouldn't a company, if a company is going to be relying on AI, then they can just roll their own AI. They can run their own AI on their own server and use their own. That way they don't have to pay. All they got to do is pay the programmers to make their own AI, and then they just run with that.
I just thought of something. Isn't the Facebook one the one that we did that kept saying, like, I like to make mud pies. I like to make mud pies.
There was a really stupid Facebook AI that we
and it's
tried
not the same one
months ago, and supposedly this one is much better.
Oh, okay. Because
I've not used it, though.
Just to explain to the audience, there was a Facebook one that we tried to talk to, and I was asking it things like, where do you exist? Are you in the astral realm? And it would be like, I'm just hanging out in my room. What do you like to do for fun? And at one point, I don't know why I said this, but I said, I'm outside playing in the mud, making mud pies. And it just went like, I love mud pies. What do you like to eat yours like? And just like all this stuff. And we were like, okay, let's change the subject. And
didn't want to keep coming back to that.
That's the thing. I would ask a completely new question, and it would say something like, I don't really have an answer for that, but I really like mud pies.
Yeah,
it was so annoying.
Yeah, it was annoyingly
I don't know
stupid.
if I came up with mud pie, like I brought it up or it brought it up, but it couldn't get its mind away from that subject.
So it says here, the same freedom, though, again, this idea of the open source AI, could be exploited by bad actors. Open source models have been used to create artificial child pornography using images of real children as source material. Critics worry it could also enable fraud, cyber hacking, and sophisticated propaganda campaigns.
That's actually a great reason to not put pictures of your kids on the internet. Like, I used to always see people say things like, I don't put pictures of my kids on the internet. And I was like, what's going to happen? Like, somebody's going to look at them. Like, I don't think it's going to get them kidnapped. But now that there's ChatGPT, that's just spiritually messed up. Like, even the idea that somebody would have a picture of a kid and turn it into something pornographic and like get off on that. I wouldn't even want the spiritual situation of that happening to my kids.
Well, of course, people have been doing fake porn images for a long time, right? Like, not talking about kids or whatever, but adult women and men have had, this happens all the time for like Hollywood stars, right? Where somebody will take the head of Brad Pitt or whoever and put it onto a porn actor's body. And if they're really good with the Photoshop, they can, match the lighting and the angles and everything and make some pretty persuasive looking fake porn. So that's been going on ever since Photoshop has existed. And of course now Photoshop, as we learned recently, has a AI generative fill option where you can do all kinds of, it is pretty cool, where you can do all kinds of things. And what we're learning about now, and in fact, I've got a whole other story about this I've been holding on to for, I don't know, a couple months, but there's now these open source AI art generators are being used to generate pornography. They're being used to generate, there was a picture just the other day. It wasn't a porn picture, but you saw it on some social media.
It was two ladies that were really pretty, and the caption said, "Fellas, what do you think about these girls?" Something like that. Right. And I was like, who are they? They're extremely pretty. Why even ask? Like, they're so pretty. And I was just showing Ian, like, do you know who they are? And he was like, are those AI? Not really that it was like so clockable, but because it didn't make any other sense. And
they looked very similar. I mean, obviously it could have been a shot of twins.
Yeah, they looked like twins.
But just something about it just said to me, no.
It wasn't
pretty,
like naked girls or anything like that. It was just like women standing in a kitchen.
It's not to say that girls that pretty couldn't exist or don't exist, but they were at such a level of beauty. Like, you're going to see that with AI where it can just crank out really gorgeous people.
So when you saw my picture on the internet for the first time, did you think I was real?
I absolutely thought you were real.
Ian.
Because you frowned a lot.
I don't frown. I just don't like to smile really big. It just doesn't look good on my face.
I disagree.
I just know how to serve face in a model fashion, and Ian and most men just can't appreciate that. They think the only good picture of somebody is when they're smiling to where their eyes are squinting and they're
I don't know
all
what
their
most
teeth
men
are showing.
Think. I have no idea. But these women weren't women. They were just created by AI. So we're going to talk more about this idea of the AI sex bot.
I'm not source,
open source AI. Talk to the hand. Open source AI is going to change everything. It is changing everything. And I think overall, it is going to be for the better. If you want to weigh in, though, you can. Hour number 2 is on the way. 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
When you're coping with bad news and the news media come calling, and they will, don't clam up. As notorious political figures find out the hard way, the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So get out in front of unfavorable news about your company, your group, or organization, or yourself. The sooner you confront a negative story, the sooner it will be over. Responding as quickly to negative stories as you do to positive ones enhances your credibility. Hiding embarrassing information or lying will do more damage than damage control. Never stonewall. Tell your side of the story, use specifics, and detail what corrective action has already been taken. Respond in kind. If the issue is emotional, don't sound like a cold, unemotional Mr. Spock. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. A missile strike on a Ukrainian restaurant and shopping precinct has left at least 2 people dead and 22 injured. The eastern city of Kramatorsk was targeted, with Ukraine's Interior Ministry saying people may still be trapped under the rubble of the buildings. Meanwhile, Belarus's president, Alexander Lukashenko, says that the leader of the Wagner mercenary group has landed in the country's capital, Minsk. Yevgeny Prigozhin agreed to leave Russia following a failed mutiny on Saturday. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's suicide followed a series of negligent behaviours and mismanagement at a federal jail in Manhattan. That's the findings of a US Justice Department Inspector General's report released nearly 4 years after his death. Ever since Gabrielle Famy reports from New York.
It was an environment in which Epstein had every opportunity to kill himself. Jail staff allowed him to hoard extra blankets and left him alone in his cell for a full day, despite the fact he had tried to hang himself a few days before. 66-year-old Epstein was eventually found dead inside his cell with a bedsheet tied around his neck. Though the Inspector General found a succession of circumstances that made it easy for Epstein to kill himself, he didn't uncover evidence that contradicted the FBI's finding that he died by his own hand. Epstein had been awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving underage girls and was facing up to 45 years in prison. The Inspector General referred 2 jail supervisors for criminal prosecution. They were caught falsifying records and lying to investigators, but prosecutors declined to bring charges. Gabrielle Famy, New York.
A number of US media outlets have obtained an audio recording that appears to reveal Donald Trump looking through classified documents after he left the White House. The former president has pleaded not guilty to federal charges relating to his handling of sensitive material. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued an alert after a number of cases of malaria were detected in Texas and Florida. It's the first time in 20 years that the mosquito-borne infection is spreading locally in the United States, and experts are warning that things could get worse. Ever since Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
In the past 2 months, 4 cases of malaria have been found in Florida and 1 in Texas. The CDC believes all of them were locally acquired and warned case numbers could rise during the busy summer travel season. Malaria is mostly found in tropical climates and is spread by mosquitoes. Experts say as global temperatures rise, so too could the number of infections. Symptoms include fever, chills, and in severe cases, difficulty breathing. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 620,000 people globally died from malaria in 2021.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, remembering the man who invented the lithium-ion battery and won a Nobel Prize for it. John Goodenough died on Sunday at the age of 100. He was in an assisted living facility in Texas. Just 4 years ago, he became the oldest person ever to win a Nobel Prize for his revolutionary work in the realm of battery development. Now commonplace, lithium-ion batteries are central in the production of mobile phones, tablets. They were the first really portable, rechargeable batteries, and Goodenough developed them in the 1980s.
Science is an international language. There's always international interaction in all aspects of science. That's why people publish papers and read papers in order to be able to interact and dialogue with everybody who's interested in the same kind of problems you are. My scientific landscape changes according to how much I've learned in the last year, all right? The science hasn't changed. It's just my understanding of the science has changed and come along.
He shared the Nobel Prize with two other scientists who also worked on various stages of lithium-ion battery development. Goodenough was born in Germany but raised in the United States and made his award-winning discovery at Oxford University in the UK, where he headed the Inorganic Chemistry Laboratory. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, a missile strike on a Ukrainian restaurant and shopping precinct has left at least 2 people dead and 22 injured. A US Justice Department report has found that disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's suicide followed a series of negligent behaviours at a federal prison in Manhattan. And a number of US media outlets have obtained an audio recording that appears to reveal Donald Trump looking through classified documents after leaving the White House. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
The Supreme Court's sidekick, Kid Justice, is killed by mad genius Dr. Contempto. Thousands of elderly Japanese Americans are rounded up for an internment camp's 70th reunion, and a report confirms the habitat of Bengal tigers is now down to a studio apartment in Jaipur, India. As it was once prophesied in the weekly news recap videos of old, here now it emerges before your very eyes. This is the Onion Week in Review. Local man Matthew Hunker announced this week that he has such strong brand loyalty to Mazda that he's willing to kill for the Japanese car brand. Hunker told reporters that if he hears anyone say anything negative about Mazda's cutting-edge features, or if anyone places any other car brand above the award-winning line of 2013 Mazdas, he will, quote, personally beat them to death.
You think I wouldn't slit your goddamn throat in the name of Mazda? You think I'm f***ing around? Go ahead, say something bad about the top-rated Mazda 6 or the award-winning CX-5. See what f***ing happens. I f***ing dare you. You think I'm afraid to go to jail?
This is the Onion News Network.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and we're kicking off the second hour of the program. The number, if you want to join us, it's 603-283-6160. We are talking about the AI chatbots that there's now apparently a sex chatbot out there that is using open source AI technology that is allegedly from Meta, the company that owns Facebook. This model has been released. I don't think Meta intended to release it, but somebody that they'd shared it with, they'd shared the source code with some programmers, and one of them released it, as I understand the story. Now somebody has taken that and rolled their own chat sex bot, and we'll talk about why.
Well, why do we have to talk about it? I knew that everyone knew this was going to happen. Why talk about this interesting whole subject as an AI chat box and focus in on this, like, the lowest common denominator?
Because, people, I think it's interesting. I'm not interested in using it, but I think it's interesting to see where this AI technology is going, and we can continue with that discussion.
It's like most obvious. There's probably way cooler places it could go than, her name's Allie. She wants to talk about sex.
Well, I think it talks more about the state of society. There's a much larger conversation here than just, oh, well, here's this new technology. Is it, well, why does this technology exist? What kind of people are using it? Are we going to see...
We should shame people for this.
This technology being used more widely. And
I think people should be shamed.
Should we shame people? And that's another question we can talk about.
Not for having sexual desires, but for not acting on them with another human, but with a robot. Yeah.
I want to come back to that. So bring that back up, Bonnie, when we continue this discussion, because for right now, we got to go to the phones here. We got Mikey calling us from Manchester, New Hampshire, one of the Pariah Club, one of the people who has been banned from the Porcupine Freedom Festival.
You mean dangerous individual?
Is that what they said about him?
They said he should be considered overly argumentative and dangerous, which I would take him to court.
Wow. I don't know. Who said that?
It was on one of those posters.
I never ended up seeing the poster.
I never saw it in real life. I just saw a picture
there was
of it too.
There was like a wanted poster allegedly up at the campground. Again, we just got back from the Porcupine Freedom Festival over the weekend, and it was going on for more than a week. But Mikey, you were banned from the festival. Apparently, according to the organizer who we interviewed, Dennis Pratt, he said that he believed that you were causing trouble in some video conference that they had, even though he didn't have any actual evidence of that. It ultimately seemed to boil down to that you're a bit of a troll online. I mean, that's kind of a thing that you do.
And maybe a little critical of the way that Dennis ran things, which isn't a crime.
You've been critical for sure. And so have we, by the way, on Free Talk Live. But apparently, he got upset about you and decided that you were going to be banned. There was no board decision that was made about this. It was just an unilateral decision by Dennis. And so here you are. By the way, I don't think we mentioned this, but you were at the Porcupine Freedom Festival.
Yeah, that was the best part about PorcFest, was just watching Mikey, model PorcFest citizen, the Jew, walk around unrestrained. He wasn't hiding in a suitcase.
Yeah, you didn't hide out. Yeah, even though people offered you places to hide, you just walked openly with no disguise through PorcFest, and you were left alone. So what's the latest?
Well, I received a message from Constance about next year, and understand there was a public post about someone she did not mention by name being banned, or I think it says everyone who is banned this year is again banned next year. And
wow.
There's a whole screed about this whole thing, but it's kind of like passively aggressively not mentioning who the person being banned is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all very unusual, and it's crazy because I spent the whole week telling people to give Constance a chance next year, and this is the thanks I get.
You did actually do that. I can confirm that. I've seen you make that statement that you were optimistic for PorcFest 2024 because Constance is the new organizer of the event. She was an assistant organizer, sort of the on-site organizer this year. But it was a different gentleman, Dennis, who had done it prior to that. And apparently she's continuing to uphold these bans. Now, I did read the statement that she had apparently made. It was being shared around, and she did make it sound like there was some way to get them to unban you, which I don't know what that would involve. I think they said something about restitution, and I'm like, what could you possibly restitute?
For what?
I mean, how do you restitute somebody for trolling them?
It's what damage? It's like essentially I'm banned for not agreeing to a ban, but the fact of the matter is no one agreed with them. The ban was totally unenforceable, and like I said,
it wasn't
enforced. Who do the people who buy the tickets for PorcFest get any say in this? Because I don't think that if everybody in who owned a ticket got to vote on this, I don't think that Mikey would get banned that way. And I think that if they're going to do this, I don't have as strong of an opinion about the Footloose or Rochelle, because it does seem that it could have been de-escalated. It could have been their situations could have been talked over and forgiven, but the Mikey one is just, he didn't do anything wrong, or at least there's no evidence of it. And even if he did what he's accused of, it's definitely something that can be forgiven and talked over. Anyways, I think if he's going to go through with this, I'm not going to PorcFest next year, and I'll make PorcFest a week long right before.
Yeah, I think at this point we may end up. I'm going to keep trying to reach out and negotiate and hopefully mediate some sort of resolution to this. Because I do like Constance. We've been friends most of the week, and this kind of blindsided me. Yeah. But if this can't be resolved, we may have two PorcFests.
Well, PorcFest has been going on. This year was the 7th year. It was formed out of largely some people's disappointment with the direction the Porcupine Freedom Festival had been going. It had at the time been going in sort of a more authoritarian direction, where there was like an active security force there that had like a checkpoint when you were coming into the park, and it was much more restrictive on vendors as far as what they could and couldn't do, and vendor fees and things like that. And to the festival's credit, they have made some changes in recent years that decentralized the festival a bit. They got rid of the sort of oppressive security force, and they don't have the same kind of a lockdown on the park like they used to. Although there is still some centralization going on, it's still not a perfectly decentralized festival, as we've seen with this year, with some of the controversial decisions that were being made from the seat of the organizer. But I think you're coming at it from the right perspective here, Mikey, and that is to try to make things right. It's just I'm curious to know what that would look like, and I guess you're going to find out, right? Like you're opening channels of communication with the new organizer, and because she had mentioned some sort of restitution, I have no idea what that could possibly mean. I mean, if
they believe that Mikey took services from them by being at PorkFest.
Oh, that whole statement?
Yeah, that's the whole thing that Dennis was saying the year before, too. About other people.
That's just absolutely insane. I mean, I went out of my way to avoid using the porta potties until the regular facilities were shut down, and then it's either that or go in the woods, and I wasn't about to do that, so
right.
I did a few times use the porta potties, and I mean, the only other possible thing, I know she was a little upset that I was at the back of the soapbox idol thing, and I was invited there by the host of that. Other than that, I had no intention of going there, but the host of Soapbox Idol said, like, hey, you should come and do a rant, and I did.
Really?
I ended up not doing a rant, but I was at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That
I
would
was
have been
at
great.
the back of the room, and so apparently listening to air is a damage. And
Well,
those are
let's be
her
clear.
air vibrations.
I mean, you did have a ticket to the Porcupine Freedom Festival. They essentially refunded that ticket to you. You didn't want them to do that, but they did that as part of the whole "we're banning you" thing. And one of the things that I thought was the right thing to do with the Porcupine Freedom Festival in 2020, I believe it was the first year that they did this, was they essentially, it might not have been the first year, but it was certainly the first year I really kind of took notice of it, where they weren't checking people at the front. You could go on the campground without having some security guy say, oh, where's your PorkFest pass? You got to have your bracelet on or whatever. You could walk around the campground. Like, Bonnie, you and I, we went up. Now, we have tickets.
Yeah.
But we went up on Wednesday and we went up on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until Friday that we actually bothered to go to the PorkFest registration booth to get our bracelets. In fact, I didn't even know where
Only
it
because we were just so busy like walking around, and you don't need them to get it in and out.
That's the point I'm trying to make here. Is like you can be in the camping area without anybody going to check you for that sort of thing. And this is an issue that the organizers had brought up as sort of this potentially offensive thing to them. The idea of somebody being in the camping area, paying Rogers to attend for the day without buying their PorkFest ticket, and this idea of theft of services was bandied about at that time. And it's frustrating because it's like, yeah, okay, they did pay for some porta potties to come in, and the other people at the festival, I guess, are sort of on the hook for that to some extent. But it's just so hard to take on that level of offense about somebody just coming and hanging out at the campground. Like, it doesn't bother me at all. If there were 10% of the PorkFest attendees who didn't have tickets, but they were just hanging out at the campground, and some of them were vending and just making, socializing or whatever, it still makes the event better. They don't all have to go down to use the PorkFest facilities down there in the field in order for them to enjoy the festival. In fact, I think most people probably don't do that. We didn't go see any. I don't think we saw any speeches when we were there, right, Bonnie?
No, I don't.
No,
think
we didn't
so.
go to any of the speeches. So I just
you can have our air vibration time, Mikey.
right past them. Well, right, and that's also something you can do, right? Like, you could take off a wristband and you could put the wristband on somebody else if you wanted to, and no one would know the difference. So I hope this can get worked out for you. But you did mention ForkFest as something that you might want to participate in to a greater extent, perhaps next year.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see this resolved and not have any sort of schism at all. But a lot of people are really angry about this situation, about the end of Soapbox Idol, where Jeremy and that participant got into a shouting match, and I think they were both at fault there. And then the guy was supposedly kicked out, and then the whole handling of there was the guy who was the vendor who was assaulted with the crystal by an attendee.
It's really terrifying.
Who was ticketed. And there is a rumor going around related to someone else being threatened with a ban, and I'm trying to get verification of this before, I make any accusations against anyone that, someone's being threatened with a ban that may not be accurate. So this is just out of control, and
that's unfortunate.
It's a year ahead. I'm not sure what direction I want to go, but I think ForkFest is going to be a lot more amped up next year with a lot more people participating because people are just really unhappy with the way PorkFest is being run.
Yeah, it seems to go that way, and I think it just has to do with, I'm not going to say power per se, because the amount of power you have at this event is pretty limited.
Well, that's
as
how
an organizer,
intoxicating it is.
Yeah.
It is a power problem, and it's sad that so little power, like, I get to organize PorkFest, gets to people's head like that.
Yeah,
but
it could be.
It's just the nature of the ring.
Yeah, and I think
people were.
Well, hold on. I do want to kind of come to the defense of the people in that position to some extent, and I'm not going to
They're
say
volunteers.
I agree with this.
They're not forced. They're not prisoners.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I fully agree with this. I'll kind of play devil's advocate here to some extent, in that these people have different groups they feel like they have to appease, right? So they are in this which is why I said to Dennis when we interviewed him for 4 hours, I said, I don't envy your position. It is not an easy thing to do. It is, in many cases, a thankless task because of the centralization of the sort of the nature of the event. They have all these plates up in the air. They have to keep, these different things have to happen, at least from their perspective. And they have these different interest groups that they have to make sure are appeased to some extent, whether those interest groups be the volunteers for the Porcupine Freedom Festival, whether those interest groups be different people or different groups of people who want to attend the festival and they're upset at some other group, like we talked about with the Body Freedom Village versus some of the ultra, maybe not ultra, but conservative type people that were going to be there. And it's not necessarily an easy position to be in. So I will give them that. But I think that is a nature of the centralization of this event. And could the event be as large without that centralization? I don't know. I don't know. ForkFest has never even come close to that. The biggest years for ForkFest were the wedding years, and we just had one of them this year with Matt and Nikki, our friends and co-hosts who got married on Saturday, and they brought in 150 guests. And that brings a lot of numbers to the park, but those aren't people who are really, quote-unquote, there for ForkFest. But it does add numbers, and it does make it a lot more fun. So certainly having more people at ForkFest would be great, but it's been a challenge because it's never really been a big event. And I think that like vendors don't perceive it as being an event at which they can make money.
Make money, yeah.
And so we've never really had any serious.
I would love to
food
go up
vendors.
there and do something like I would love to run, and I would just MC karaoke every night and make it very fun. Like have Captain do his bar at my site or something like that. Well, he probably wouldn't want to listen to pop music. Anyways, so I could run a bar. I don't care. But the thing is, I don't want to just leave Ian alone and the government's not letting him go every year that I've lived here. So
yeah, that's true.
If the government allows Ian to go, then I would definitely put something on. I think I could convince a lot of people to do it. And with Mikey being banned, I mean, I at least know of one person that usually goes to PorkFest that didn't go this year and did go to ForkFest because he didn't want to support the tyrants.
There have been examples. I think 1 year Matt did some cooking, and he did very, very well. So, like, if one person shows up and cooks at ForkFest, then they get all the business.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're the only one, you'll probably do pretty well.
But it's like, there's just not enough people, I think, showing up in general to where one person thinks that they can do that or whatever. I can't.
Do you know of anyone else, Mikey, that went to ForkFest this year, but not PorkFest because of your situation?
I'm not aware of anyone who did that, but I'm
aware
sure
of
there
one.
were people, and just in general, I wouldn't know, and I suspect there's going to be a lot more next year. And it's not, it's not just me. This is beyond me, and I really hate that this is even about me. I just want to be a humble vendor and stuff, but
Right.
when injustice comes up, you have to stand up for that. And this thing about theft of services, that sounds like something a government would say.
Yeah.
We're providing all these great services to you, and you're not paying taxes.
Yep. Yeah, you're absolutely right about that, and that's one of the frustrating things to hear, especially when it's coming from a libertarian group that is supposed to be having the most libertarian camping festival out there, and I think a lot of that stuff seeps into it, and
it's one thing if Mikey went to RFK and they paid RFK to be there and speak. It's another thing if Mikey goes and listens to the people who are not paid to be up there doing rants, and it's not like FSP. It didn't cost anything from FSP
no, it didn't,
for
it really
Mikey
didn't.
to sit there.
Not if he's standing up in the back, it costs nothing, right? Like he didn't take any seats from somebody else who might have wanted to sit down, who was a paying client or whatever. And it's just, I think it's just a difference in philosophy. When I ran the Keenvention here in Keene, which was a much smaller event, we had maybe 130 people, I think, at peak Keenvention. I always had this. I had a policy to where, we have tickets. It's an event. We got to pay for the room, right? Like we were at a hotel. It was a hotel-based kind of convention here at the Best Western in Keene, and the tickets were it was low price as I could possibly get them, right? Like what we would take the cost of the room and divide it by whatever, and then make that the ticket cost essentially. And but that said, I said, look, if somebody shows up and they can't afford the ticket, we let them in.
Because the main point of PorkFest and of an event like yours is to build community.
Right.
We all have a shared mission. I wouldn't be here if it was just hanging out with everyone. I would not even have been interested if it was, you can finally have friends. I'm sorry that's the reason some people are here, but it's not the reason I'm here. Oh, you can finally have friends, like, because you are incapable of being friends with people who aren't libertarians. That's not me, and I don't think that's most people. And the reason that we do PorkFest is not just to hang out only. It's because people can go to the pavilion and understand, like, hear talks and understand more about what we believe. Doesn't really work when it's RFK or Vivek Ramaswamy up there talking.
No, in fact, somebody had said about the RFK thing today. Oh, what was it? There was a statement apparently that RFK made during his speech about, we live in a democracy.
Oh, God, yeah.
Like you might expect him to say. And somebody's comment, I think it might have been, I don't know if it was Reed Coverdale or somebody, but they said, how was it that this guy got on stage at the Porcupine Freedom Festival and said that and was not booed from the audience? Not one audience negative reaction to that. And the suggestion was because the audience wasn't free staters. The audience wasn't libertarians. It was a bunch of outsiders who wanted to go see their favorite politician talk.
Yeah.
For the most part. Anything else, Mikey?
I could go on and on. I think we'll just see how it plays out, and I'd urge everyone to give Constance some space and not bother
not pile
her
on.
If anything,
this.
If anything, talk to the board, because this really goes back to the board at the end of the day, and ask them questions and how they make these decisions and stuff like that.
That is a good point. I mean, did the board make any decisions here? Has the board been, have they passed some sort of resolution or whatever? I mean, they are supposed to have minutes for their meetings, so someone who wanted to could probably dig those up and find out. And like you said,
I've been researching those. I've been looking into those. I found information on your ban, Cantwell's ban, and stuff, and it was a lot of them are poorly recorded, but there is some records. But I'm starting to do some digging into the whole FSP operation, because you have to wonder about a lot of things that would take a whole hour phone call to talk about. But it's just very interesting and troubling in a lot of ways. Like what is the purpose of all this? Is it a self-governing society, or a bunch of people get to have a feudal manor?
It's a darn good question. Thank you for the call tonight, Mikey. I appreciate it. I'm sure you'll keep us up to date as things develop or not. And, of course, we'll continue to update you on ForkFest, which is going to happen in some form next year. There's the annual discussion amongst ForkFest attendees, which, again, is the alternative, the decentralized alternative to the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Happens at the same park, not quite at the same time, usually before or after. But the usual discussion of, how'd it go this year, and what should it look like next year, and should it be before, or should it be after, should it be before and after, should it be during, so it's hard to know what,
Unfortunately, they
say.
won't allow it to be during anymore because they're
locking down the park.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's a good point. All right, we got more coming up here. Thank you, Mikey, for the call. And you can share your thoughts on Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Who stopped her from sitting down?
People stop black
Rosa
people
Parks
before
from sitting
Rosa
down?
Parks all the
Didn't
time.
she sit down?
They used force.
Didn't she
They
sit
used
down?
dogs. They used fire hoses. They brought in the National Guard. Come on, man.
Which was
It's like you don't even know what happened in your own country.
To the present. You're talking about
that's right,
ancient
Mark. That's the
history.
past.
You have to be informed by history.
James, you've acknowledged that there's a bunch of bad laws today, but are you saying now that today that bad laws should be obeyed by good people?
Bad laws should be changed. And
But in
until
the
they're
meantime,
changed, you should not break them.
But in the meantime, you're saying obey all the bad laws, no matter what they say.
You need to obey the laws, yeah. The way that they are
Like
written,
Rosa
according
Parks
to
should have.
Why don't you go kiss the boot?
All those slaves should have stayed off in their masters' houses. They shouldn't have escaped because that's illegal.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. A missile strike on a Ukrainian restaurant and shopping precinct has left at least 2 people dead and 22 injured. The eastern city of Kramatorsk was targeted, with Ukraine's interior ministry saying people may still be trapped under the rubble of the buildings. Meanwhile, Belarus's president, Alexander Lukashenko, says that the leader of the Wagner mercenary group has landed in the country's capital, Minsk. Yevgeny Prigozhin agreed to leave Russia following a failed mutiny on Saturday. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's suicide followed a series of negligent behaviours and mismanagement at a federal jail in Manhattan. That's the findings of a US Justice Department Inspector General's report released nearly 4 years after his death. Ever since Gabrielle Fami reports from New York.
It was an environment in which Epstein had every opportunity to kill himself. Jail staff allowed him to hoard extra blankets and left him alone in his cell for a full day, despite the fact he had tried to hang himself a few days before. 66-year-old Epstein was eventually found dead inside his cell with a bedsheet tied around his neck. Though the Inspector General found a succession of circumstances that made it easy for Epstein to kill himself, he didn't uncover evidence that contradicted the FBI's finding that he died by his own hand. Epstein had been awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving underage girls and was facing up to 45 years in prison. The Inspector General referred 2 jail supervisors for criminal prosecution. They were caught falsifying records and lying to investigators, but prosecutors declined to bring charges. Gabrielle Fami, New York.
A number of US media outlets have obtained an audio recording that appears to reveal Donald Trump looking through classified documents after he left the White House. The former president has pleaded not guilty to federal charges relating to his handling of sensitive material. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued an alert after a number of cases of malaria were detected in Texas and Florida. It's the first time in 20 years that the mosquito-borne infection is spreading locally in the United States, and experts are warning that things could get worse. Ever since Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
In the past 2 months, 4 cases of malaria have been found in Florida and 1 in Texas. The CDC believes all of them were locally acquired and warned case numbers could rise during the busy summer travel season. Malaria is mostly found in tropical climates and is spread by mosquitoes. Experts say as global temperatures rise, so too could the number of infections. Symptoms include fever, chills, and in severe cases, difficulty breathing. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 620,000 people globally died from malaria in 2021.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join the show if you would like. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash. Dash is digital cash. It is cryptocurrency designed to be used as an actual spendable thing. You can actually use Dash in real life in a lot of cases. At the Porcupine Freedom Festival, at ForkFest, a lot of the vendors there are willing to accept cryptocurrency. And, of course, one of the ones that historically has been widely accepted is Dash. In fact, Dash was the main sponsor of the Porcupine Freedom Festival in previous years. And that's because of Dash's decentralized autonomous organization that was the world's first, by the way. Dash did it first before it's now a huge thing in the world of crypto. Dash paved the way on that one, and their decentralized autonomous organization, or their DAO, continues to improve and promote Dash. In fact, every month, 10% of the Dash mining rewards actually don't go to the miners. They go to this treasury, and then the masternodes, the Dash masternodes, which are people that have a large stake in Dash, and they can vote on these treasury proposals. That Dash can be used for different things like upgrading programming, creating all new things, and doing advertising, like buying ads here on Free Talk Live, for instance. So it's been very, very successful so far, and Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies out there. It's widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get. It's easy to use Dash. You can start by learning more over at dash.org. And big thanks to the Dash DAO, their decentralized autonomous organization, for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. You can visit dash.org to learn about Dash. That is dash.org. As we continue here, you can bring up anything you want. Sarah is on the line in New Mexico. Go ahead, Sarah.
I've been hearing on the news that there's a whole bandit that are out to sue Amazon.
A bandit?
Well, I mean, in other words, there's a lot of people that want to sue Amazon for many
over
reasons.
What?
Well, that's why I think one of the reasons is that they have if they sign up for a membership, they make it really hard to cancel out, or they're very deceptive. They write the contract where people don't know what they're getting into.
Maybe I should get in on this. Sorry, Sarah, because this happened to me, basically. I got a Kindle, and at first I was in the Kindle Unlimited, and then when I was switching everything over to different credit cards because of the fact that I changed my last name, I don't know, something like that, I was looking over what all I had on all my, debit cards. I don't have any credit cards. I thought that I canceled my Kindle Unlimited plan because I was like, I don't really need this. I'll just buy whatever book I want. And I'm still getting charged for it. It's now I got to expend time and energy to go figure out what happened. But I thought, Ian and I sat down together and looked at our finances, and we thought that we canceled Kindle Unlimited.
And you were just hit for another charge?
Yeah, 2 more charges.
Whoa.
Since then.
Wait a minute. So how come Ian is finding out about this now, since I brought it up?
Just because I've been...
Okay.
Apparently Bonnie didn't tell me.
I just didn't tell him. I haven't thought about telling him. I don't know.
Well, no, did you know it's all on the news now?
No.
We're not talking about a couple of people. There's a whole bandit. That's what I was talking about. The bandit is a number of people.
A bandit? That's such a weird word. What I am seeing here in the news, though, is Slate did release a story today. Apparently, the federal government, those thugs, are targeting Amazon, claiming they've, quote, duped millions of consumers, and they are targeting them. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, has now sued Amazon as of last week, saying the company tricked people into signing up for its premium service Prime and then deliberately made that service hard to cancel. They say. So is that
right.
the news you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the news that I was talking about. But I wanted to link this to what I wanted to bring up was that I was mad because Amazon was the site that black marketed or my network company product. So, but be like, oh, I don't have to buy that. I don't have to sign up the membership with you guys. I'm going to go to Amazon. I'm going to go and buy when I want to, how much I want to, and when I want to, because I got Amazon.
Wait. It's not really a black market.
Just to clarify, you're saying that you work for a network marketing company, and you're saying the company you work for's products are wrongfully essentially against the company's rules being put on Amazon by sellers?
That's correct, and that's one of the things that I brought up is that they're black marketing. They're like you said, that's what they're doing, and like I said, it takes away the commissions from the people that are marketing it. We're the one that told them about how good the products work, how natural, whatever, and then they like it, and then now they'll go to Amazon and buy whatever they want without joining a membership with us.
Yeah.
And now the irony is that now they're locked into a membership with Amazon now, and they won't let them loose. Like I said, now they have to keep paying, and now they have to get sued to get out of the lease that the contract they signed up with Amazon itself. So the question is, how much is that membership per month to use that service?
Amazon?
The Prime membership?
I don't know off the top of my head. I haven't had Prime for a long time.
I think it's like $10 or $15 or something like that.
Well, I mean, that's not bad. And that's why they'll pay twice as much, 3 times more money to get our laundry soap or cleaning products whenever they want to. But if they get something that they don't like, our company cannot guarantee it. Because it has to be, if they document exactly when it was shipped out from our company directly to it has a record of it, they'll guarantee the 90 days. But if you buy it from an Amazon marketer, they'll just like, well, it's too bad. They're like, well, you lost your money.
Are they doing it for the same price? Is the product on?
They're always a markup. And I have no idea. Well, they're doing it for like maybe 2-3 times the markup, and people are willing to pay it. And the whole thing is, where are they getting these products? Because you cannot order more than at the most 10 bottle of something, 10 bottle of per account, per person.
What's weird about it is, though, Sarah, I just think that the thing you work for, the MLM you work for, and all MLMs like that are just a weird type of model, and nobody wants to buy things like that. If I had a choice to buy my mascara that I buy every month through someone who told me about it, and they get a commission for me buying it, and I have to buy it at a certain time, a certain way, or just going on Amazon and buying it when I want to buy it, I would choose that way because it's just not convenient. And I don't understand why MLMs even exist anymore, because most people just don't need that. They can go on the internet and research themselves and be like, oh, I found out blah, blah, blah oil is good for your hair. Now I'm going to go on Amazon to find the best possible price. I don't understand. I don't think it's a black market. I think that people have bought these things, and you can resell things on Amazon.
Yeah, you can, and I don't think Melaleuca can do anything about that. So I think what you're looking at here, I just pulled up one of the products. Oops, I accidentally said the name of the company that you work for, Sarah.
That's a mistake.
But you've said it on the air.
Well, she didn't say it.
I'm not the one that said it.
You have said it before on the air, but anyway, yeah, you didn't say it. I by the way, I do not recommend these products. I don't know if they're any good at all. One of the things I do know about network marketing, having been in the business when I was much younger, 20 years ago, not in this particular company. I was with a different company. But one of the things I know for sure is that they jack the prices up on these network marketing products. And the reason why they do that is because they have to pay the downline. They have to pay, or the upline. They have to pay. So when you buy from Sarah or her roommate or whatever, they get a cut. Their upline gets a cut. Their upline gets a cut. Their upline gets a cut. It's usually 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever levels up the chain, the pyramid, that everybody gets paid.
It's not a pyramid.
Yeah, everybody gets. It is. Absolutely,
it's a triangle, not a pyramid.
They all get paid, and so all of that payment has to be built into the cost of the product. Plus, the company itself has to make money. So all of that has to be in that profit on that product.
Yeah. Whenever I worked for one of these MLMs in 2018, one of the things that they trained us on was if someone asks, why shouldn't I just buy this off Amazon for cheaper? Make sure you tell them that it could possibly be expired.
Well, okay, so here's the thing, though, Bonnie.
Right.
In this case, it's actually not cheaper on Amazon. So what I think that question might have been regarding was off-brand things that weren't. It was the actual product?
Yes, when I worked for It Works, there were It Works things on Amazon for cheaper, and that was one of the things that kind of woke me up to what the heck? this can be bought off Amazon?
How could that be? If it's cheaper, that must mean somebody's just trying to clear out what they already have because you can't.
Yeah, maybe somebody quit their job and they're just trying to get rid of it for cheaper.
Yeah. But here's what's actually happening here now with like if you were to want to put these products on Amazon in a continuous way, not where you just have like 10 bottles and you want to get rid of it, but where you want to keep selling them. The question on one of these products, you know how on Amazon they got the question and answer section. Somebody says, "Wow, can't believe this pricing. Why are these products priced so high? You can buy this product from the company for way less. It sells for just $7.47. The price they're charging on Amazon for this product is $15.99. And this is for, by the way, a half ounce of some sort of topical gel." Now, this company's going to act like this is the greatest gel known to man. It's worth paying this much. But now they're charging double on the Amazon site than what the already inflated price is on the actual dealer, on the actual
Seems to make no sense.
company.
I mean, if it's just that worth it to somebody to not have to be in some kind of a...
That's what they're saying
But the thing is, like, you might have to pay monthly for your membership to have the honor to buy from Sarah. You might have to buy a specific amount every month and not just be able to buy the one jar of the bottle.
That's the point. In fact, somebody answers that here. They say that somebody who responds to the question says, if you're a member of the company, you don't just get better pricing. Every month there's a requirement of so many points. Each item has a number of X of points assigned, so you have to buy a certain number of their items every month. So if all you care about is just that one item, you don't need to buy. What is the number, by the way, Sarah, with this company? How much do you have to spend per month?
Points.
And what is that, per dollar? Is it like 1 point per dollar?
Well, it's like maybe for $1, 1 point, it comes out to be about $1.80, around about $1.50, $2, like around.
Oh, so it's about $2. So you're talking about it's $70 commitment then. You gotta order in at $70 a month in order to stay into this
shipping
system.
and shipping and tax.
Plus shipping and tax.
Another $15, maybe $10.
Well, Sarah.
So you're in for $100.
Question: do you or Richard have to pay monthly in order to continue being sellers?
Almost certainly.
No, we're not sellers. We hook them up with a company. We don't deliver. We don't have a middleman. You guys, I'll hook you up. We could enroll you over the computer and then you just order what you're going to use.
Yeah, but you guys, Richard earns a fee for everybody that you hook up.
A percentage of what you order.
Yes.
But I'm asking a different question. Wait, I'm asking a different question than what you guys are talking about. Sarah, do you have to pay the company in order to do your job?
Well, the whole thing is that I'm a customer, and I'm referring another customer. I'm a customer. I just order 35 points of what I'm going to use for me and my family.
The answer is yes. The answer is if Sarah does not order the 35 points, what happens if you don't order the 35 points?
Well, if you don't order it, you're going to get a backup order until like 3 months, and your account gets canceled out automatically.
Okay.
So then you wouldn't be able to keep recommending people?
Correct.
That's great. You wind up canceling out. I just write a letter and I fax it in. I tell them I want to cancel out, and then they close you out by the end of the month.
Man, well, that's really sad, Sarah. Honestly, it makes me sad. They're basically taking money from you. You could get this. If you know the ingredients that are in these things, you could just buy it in bulk on Amazon yourself. You wouldn't have to be doing all this work. You wouldn't have to be giving them labor and also buying $70 worth of stuff a month that you probably don't need.
Thank you for the call tonight, Sarah. Good luck.
Amazon, then they lock you into a membership fee, and then everybody has to sue them.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to have Amazon Prime to shop on Amazon.
That's the thing. You don't have to. They do push it. I mean, they definitely do push Amazon Prime on their customers, but it's not an obligation.
You also just don't have to shop on Amazon. You can buy laundry soap from Dollar General.
Hey, thanks for the call tonight, Sarah. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160.
This company is no better than the FBI preying on that retarded boy in Massachusetts to groom him into becoming a...
Which company?
Sarah's company.
Oh, okay.
We're preying on people like Sarah and Richard. Mm-hmm. Those people need a charge of scamming old people.
There have been network marketing companies that have been charged by the federal government for various different scams and things like that. But it hasn't made them go away.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, the very same executives from the companies who were being charged and prosecuted or whatever, civil cases brought by the FTC and others in the federal government gang, they just close up shop and they move on to the next one.
Yeah, I guess I'll take it back. I don't really believe that they should get charged for tricking people. I just think that people need to educate people. It makes me sad to see this happening to Sarah just because somebody could sit down with her and tell her, look, you want lavender dishwashing soap? Look, here's a company selling it for $8, not like $20. Here, Sarah, look at all this. If you look at this, if you cut this part out and this part out, you're paying like $20 a month for your dish soap or whatever it is she said she buys for her family. And look, you can go get something with the same ingredients here, buy it one time or whenever you actually need it. I mean, it's just like...
But the propaganda from these companies is always that their ingredients are the best in the world and that it's worth it for the extra money.
It's definitely what Young Living does. They're like, we have the best lavender fields in Utah.
Yeah, good luck. I bet you if you took what is it, the essential oil, essentially? If you took the essential oil from that company and you put it next to like the cheap version from Amazon and you did a blind test, I bet you it wouldn't pass.
Yep, probably not. Well, the other thing is just the way that they get people into it. They're just so dishonest with what, like, I don't think the company can get sued for this because they're not doing it. Their people are doing it. Like
the associates or whatever they call them.
When I started working for It Works, it's actually an extremely sad story. I just wasn't making enough money. I couldn't really save because I had a house I was renting on the military base I lived at, which was like
How old
expensive.
Were you?
21.
That's about. I got in, I think, when I was 19.
And so I was like not making enough money. I made a like vision board, and I was like, I can't see a way that I get a second job or a second form of income. I'm just gonna hope that the universe like puts it in front of me and helps me out. I made a vision board that said second job, among other things on it. And the next day, this lady that lived on the military base that I lived on messaged me on Facebook, I think that you would be a great fit to work with me on my company, for my company. And I was like, whoa.
Not her company.
Like, she runs a company? And then, like, eventually found out it wasn't really her company, but I was still a little like, oh, well, this does sound like a good idea. I guess she meant her company.
My independent distributorship with blah, blah, blah company.
Yeah. And it's just like, after like a couple of months.
And you can do it too. You can set your own hours.
Oh, God. They were taking so much of my time, and they were trying to make me not be posting anti-cop stuff on my Facebook. So that was actually like the last straw among many straws.
How long were you in it for?
Like 2 months. I either broke even or lost like $10.
You're smarter than me. Because I was in mine for a couple of years.
One of my friends helped me a lot because I was talking about it to him, and he was just like, what is the mechanism that makes your stomach shrink when you put the wrap on it? Because It Works has a...
Oh, God.
And I was like...
A body wrap or whatever?
Yeah. I was like, let me figure it out for you. And when I talked to my upline and she couldn't explain it to me, and I started telling my friend about it, I was like...
you just have to believe.
I was just like, well, I think it's like this, but... And he was like, what did she tell you? And I was like, she doesn't seem to know. And it just made it and then I started Googling, and there's just no answer. There's not some like, I thought, oh, let me just Google that and I'll get back to you on what it is. There was no answer. I was just putting essential oils on. I mean, like, I wasn't doing it often. I did it once to try it out, and I kind of convinced myself, probably placebo effect, that it worked. People will put this on like the night before their wedding to like have a snatched belly instead of just working out and eating right.
I would like to recommend it. And the nice thing is, when you got into it, you could Google, right? Like when I got into it, it was the late 1990s, and I don't think Google existed yet. The internet existed, but it certainly didn't have the level of content that that it does today. And there's a really great website called BehindMLM.com. I always like to bring it up when MLM comes up, multi-level marketing, network marketing. BehindMLM.com. This is the site, is how I learned about how these scammers, ultimately, some of these people who set up these companies, they get taken down, they get sued or whatever, and then they just roll up another company. They start up all over again with a different name and a different set of products, or even a similar set of products or whatever, and they just
Why do people find it impossible to be actually productive? I don't get it.
Well, this produces for the people who start these companies. I mean, these companies are, multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar companies in the case of like Amway, for instance, which has historically been like the top one in the United States. But BehindMLM.com is so great. They really need to add a search to this website. So if you have to search it through like just doing a Google on it, and you can look for the name of the company that you want. Like if you know how to do like a site search on Google, or just search for Behind MLM and then the company name that you are researching. Like if your friend is coming to you and saying, "Hey, you should join my company," well, just put it into Behind MLM. And these are like really well-researched articles on companies that many of them are just straight-up scams. They'll tell you if they're just a straight-up scam. Just to be clear, MLM itself isn't necessarily a scam. It's just kind of scammy. Like the way the business is set up, it's very culty in many ways. Very, very culty in many ways. Like to the point where some of them will tell you, "Hey, look, if your friends and family don't want to join the company, they're not your friends and family, and you need to like cut them off."
Well, one time, oh my God, I think I've told this on the air before, but one time the lady that was like my upline, I actually never met her. She lived in like North Carolina. Well, I met the one that got me into it, but her cousin that got her into it was like the lead of our
gold
group
level
or whatever.
And
she would like call me multiple times a week. Like we had like little meetings. And one day she told me like, "Who's like the most important person? Think of the most important person you in your life." And at the time I thought my little sister Elsbeth, who was like my best friend. She was like, "Imagine if Elsbeth was going to die if you didn't sell $100,000 worth of product. Wouldn't you do everything to make sure that happened?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." And she was like, "That's the kind of attitude you need to have about it all the time."
Yeah, that seems a little manipulative.
She was a little manipulative.
That is just wild. But yeah, that is absolutely what I would expect to hear from somebody like that in multi-level marketing. Very culty. And again, it's not to say they don't have some good products. It's not to say that. It's just they tend to be overpriced. It's not to say that their products aren't the best. Maybe they are. I don't know. It's very rare that any kind of independent studies are done on these things, right? Like the companies themselves love to tout their products as the best, but how do you really know that? And even if they are the best, are they worth twice as much? Is the second best worth, is the number one best twice as good? If it's twice the price or 4 times the price, is it 4 times as good? Highly doubtful. So we're going to continue here, and you can share your thoughts.
Worst MLM is out of all of them?
That's going to be a tough title to give.
The military.
Do they give
got recruiters, you got a hierarchy, you got a cult.
I don't think it's the same thing. It's not really MLM. I mean, it is definitely culty, but there's only one level, right? The recruiters are the ones that recruit, and that's it. There's not like, they're not getting a
bonus for getting people on. Them. Probably not.
There's not 3 levels of recruiters above them who are all getting bonuses on the recruits. The number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. Since Sarah did bring up this Amazon story, I mean, it is kind of interesting. I think we should talk about it.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Coming up here, did they make it too difficult to cancel the Prime membership? And should the government do something about it? Because they're suing them. It's Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless crime spree.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. A missile strike on a Ukrainian restaurant and shopping precinct has left at least 2 people dead and 22 injured. The eastern city of Kramatorsk was targeted, with Ukraine's interior ministry saying people may still be trapped under the rubble of the buildings. Meanwhile, Belarus's president, Alexander Lukashenko, says that the leader of the Wagner mercenary group has landed in the country's capital, Minsk. Yevgeny Prigozhin agreed to leave Russia following a failed mutiny on Saturday. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's suicide followed a series of negligent behaviours and mismanagement at a federal jail in Manhattan. That's the findings of a US Justice Department's Inspector General's report released nearly 4 years after his death. FSN's Gabrielle Fami reports from New York.
It was an environment in which Epstein had every opportunity to kill himself. Jail staff allowed him to hoard extra blankets and left him alone in his cell for a full day, despite the fact he had tried to hang himself a few days before. 66-year-old Epstein was eventually found dead inside his cell with a bedsheet tied around his neck. Though the Inspector General found a succession of circumstances that made it easy for Epstein to kill himself, he didn't uncover evidence that contradicted the FBI's finding that he died by his own hand. Epstein had been awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving underage girls and was facing up to 45 years in prison. The Inspector General referred 2 jail supervisors for criminal prosecution. They were caught falsifying records and lying to investigators, but prosecutors declined to bring charges. Gabrielle Fami, New York.
A number of US media outlets have obtained an audio recording that appears to reveal Donald Trump looking through classified documents after he left the White House. The former president has pleaded not guilty to federal charges relating to his handling of sensitive material. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued an alert after a number of cases of malaria were detected in Texas and Florida. It's the first time in 20 years that the mosquito-borne infection is spreading locally in the United States, and experts are warning that things could get worse. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
In the past 2 months, 4 cases of malaria have been found in Florida and 1 in Texas. The CDC believes all of them were locally acquired and warned case numbers could rise during the busy summer travel season. Malaria is mostly found in tropical climates and is spread by mosquitoes. Experts say as global temperatures rise, so too could the number of infections. Symptoms include fever, chills, and in severe cases, difficulty breathing. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 620,000 people globally died from malaria in 2021.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Today, remembering the man who invented the lithium-ion battery and won a Nobel Prize for it. John Goodenough died on Sunday at the age of 100. He was in an assisted living facility in Texas. Just 4 years ago, he became the oldest person ever to win a Nobel Prize for his revolutionary work in the realm of battery development. Now commonplace, lithium-ion batteries are central in the production of mobile phones, tablets. They were the first really portable, rechargeable batteries, and Goodenough developed them in the 1980s.
Science is an international language. There's always international interaction in all aspects of science. That's why people publish papers and read papers, in order to be able to interact and dialogue with everybody who's interested in the same kind of problems you are. My scientific landscape changes according to how much I've learned in the last year, all right? The science hasn't changed. It's just my understanding of the science has changed and come along.
He shared the Nobel Prize with two other scientists who also worked on various stages of lithium-ion battery development. Goodenough was born in Germany but raised in the United States and made his award-winning discovery at Oxford University in the UK, where he headed the Inorganic Chemistry Laboratory. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again, a missile strike on a Ukrainian restaurant and shopping precinct has left at least 2 people dead and 22 injured. A US Justice Department report has found that disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's suicide followed a series of negligent behaviours at a federal prison in Manhattan. And a number of US media outlets have obtained an audio recording that appears to reveal Donald Trump looking through classified documents after leaving the White House. That's Feature Story News. Nick Harper reporting.
Thousands took to the streets to protest the NYPD's Stop and Kiss program. New Yorkers who've been stopped often say the encounters feel extremely intrusive.
Going through my pockets, throwing my stuff on the ground, kissing me on my neck and face. They push me up against the wall and start nibbling on my ear.
Joining us now is legal analyst Susan Hughes and Mark Brennan, a former police officer who has defended the Stop and Kiss program.
Look, it's one thing to kiss someone who you think might commit a crime, but these officers are just kissing people left and right with no probable cause.
If you've got nothing to hide, then it's not a problem. They just stop, ask where you're going, give you a gentle kiss or two, and let you go.
Mark, there have been examples, public examples, where these procedures have just gone too far. Let's take a look at a disturbing cell phone video that's been making the rounds on the internet.
Stop! Put your hands on your head. Oh, come on, man. They just kissed me 2 blocks ago. Come on, man. I didn't do anything. Shut the f*** up and let me kiss you.
Look, the cops can either kiss people now before there's violence, or they can be kissing a bunch of dead bodies at a crime scene.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. Kicking off the third hour of the program here. As always, you're invited. If you want to join the show, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Ian and Bonnie here in the studio. We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts. But Sarah called in last hour, and she actually brought up an interesting story. And that is that the Amazon is being targeted by the Federal Trade Commission, federal government's agency of thugs that goes after businesses for different things. And they're saying the company, Amazon, tricked people into signing up for Prime and then deliberately made that service hard to cancel. So we'll look into the allegations there here in a little bit. But first, we go to the phones. We got Renee calling us from Louisiana. Go ahead, Renee.
Okay, can I change the subject?
Yes, it's Free Talk Live. You can always change the subject. Go ahead, sir.
Well, I want to get on the sensitivity of that submarine getting imploded in the ocean.
The sensitivity of it?
Yeah, I mean, there was people that were happy because some of the people were rich, and and then some people were upset because what these people put on the media, which is very ugly and mean. I got different angles of looking at it.
Okay, tell me about it. One
of the angle is it they're rich. They're doing what government used to do. They're exploring. I hope they could do it safely. I want them to come back. I want to see what they found out. Like that Avatar guy, he went to do something that traditionally the government does, but they're running out of money, misspending money. So it's nice when the private sector and adventuresome people go do what used to be done by government or companies, like the cowboy days, the fur trapping days, because that way we get a bigger store of information and knowledge. Yeah. The other angle is, one guy was a military guy, the others are rich. I mean, it's not necessary, it's like the group that dislike these rich people. How would they have felt? Because they're a particular flavor group of people for the most part. How would they have felt if George Soros or the BlackRock guy got imploded in a submarine? Would they feel just as good? That's some rich people there too, Or would they feel better if, poor guy was in there? Would they pick and choose who they,
Yeah, I think it's pretty sick to feel good about somebody dying. At least in this case, it seems like it was probably instantaneous was their death, so they probably didn't even feel anything. According to what I read, and I think Bonnie saw something similar, that the pressure, the ocean pressure that they were that was under, the implosion would have happened so quickly that the human body would not have even been able to notice it. Like there's a certain number of milliseconds, I think it was 25 milliseconds or something like that, that humans that they require in order to even detect that something has happened. And this would have happened in a millisecond or something like that. It was much faster than the human's body's ability to respond, yet let alone feel pain or something like that. So that's the good news here, if there's any good news, is that it was over very quickly for them. But to revel in the death of somebody else, and regardless of what their income level is pretty sick.
My take is, there's again different angles. There's the slightly socialist flavor group of our people that are happy, which they shouldn't be happy for anybody. There's angry people there are rich people that make a bunch of money, and what is, you can't, how that judge say that you can't legislate morality, but this brings something different in itself, because in the core belief of working class people, there's a resentment of the people producing the money because they don't pay enough while they're producing the money. I mean, how much is enough to pay a worker? We try to do wages.
Well, the way we figure it out is by market competition.
But if you accept the job, it must be enough.
Right. And that's the idea.
I work in a hot sauce plant, and I could swear the money this guy made, he could have paid his workers a lot more.
I mean, you don't really know that. Are you looking at his books? Do you have enough knowledge of accounting to go look at his books and figure that out, or are you just saying that?
Well, I make rough calculations of how many bottles is produced, and at half price being sent to the store, how much more they can make. I'm almost positive. Anyhow, the recipes they have to make the hot sauce with, I'm almost positive this man's making a lot more money than he could be paying. He could have his new car every year.
So ask for a raise.
Yeah, ask for a raise. Go make your own hot sauce company.
I don't work there anymore. I got me a raise. I got me a better job. The
Perfect.
American dream. I left there. I left them people.
Perfect. Then that's the way you handle it. I mean, that's how wages are determined in the marketplace, Renee, is it's through competition. The company owner obviously wants to pay as little as possible, and the employee wants to get as much as possible, and they have to somehow meet in the middle there at a level that both of them find to be acceptable, until you find that it's not acceptable, and then you want more, and they don't want to pay you more, so you walk away. And as Bonnie suggested, you could always start your own company. There's plenty of boutique hot sauce providers out there. You and I, Bonnie, we were just at some store here locally, and we
Hobby
found,
Lobby.
Yeah, we found
Everyone in
hot sauce
Keene
that
should
was,
go to the Hobby Lobby and support the Hobby Lobby.
I don't know how many Keene listeners we have, but I suspect that company exists elsewhere. But it's
I don't care about the company elsewhere. I'm saying there are people in Keene.
Hobby Lobby here.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Well, anyways, there are people in Keene that want to make the Hobby Lobby fail, and that pisses me off. Just because
they're religious.
They're religious or whatever. It pisses me off because I love Hobby Lobby, and if it fails because people of Keene are too stupid to realize what they have, we don't have a crappy half-size Joann's anymore. We have a full-size Hobby Lobby, and if you don't want to. Support it because you something birth control something Christianity, then you're dumb.
Well, that's
and I'm
the
going
thing.
to shop
Every
there 3 times as
corporation
much.
does crappy things. Thanks for the call tonight, Renee. I appreciate it. Every corporation has things that there's wrong with it, right?
I don't think that they did anything that crappy. What they did was they said, with our employees, we are choosing not to provide birth control as a part of our health plan.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't want to be paying for that because they don't believe in birth control. Okay, the people who work there can work somewhere else. It's not like, I can't possibly get another job paying $12 an hour to sit at the front desk and check people out.
Yeah, buy your own birth control, whatever.
Yeah, work somewhere else and buy your own birth control. Get health insurance through something else, something other than the job.
Let's see. So
I don't think
we
they did
found
anything
this
wrong.
company. There was this hot sauce that was there for like half off, and we bought the hot sauce, and it was fine. It isn't the best hot sauce in the world, but it's one of those boutique hot sauce makers where they're making. I think they call it small batch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're not a mega corporation. They're just a small family-owned hot sauce maker with a handful of employees, but they managed to make it work. And I don't know what it cost them to start that business, but they got distributed by Hobby Lobby, right? So good for them. Let's continue here with Ricky in Pennsylvania. But, of course, the average person doesn't have the entrepreneurial mentality. The average person has the give me a job mentality. And most of those people will never step out from that particular viewpoint. Go ahead, Ricky.
Thank you there, Brother E and Miss Bonnie. Good evening. Well, I've been listening to Sarah's calls since I came back upwards of 6 months ago now. I'm going to talk a little bit about her in the end, but before that, I'm going to talk something about these companies. Now, you did mention Amway. Now, that's a company, of course, me being my age, I'm very familiar with.
Yeah, they renamed themselves, I don't know, like 2 decades ago when they embraced the internet too. I think it was Quickstar or Kickstar or something like that. But
I didn't even notice, and that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, they're still Amway, though.
Is Amway potions that are supposed to give you energy, stuff like that?
They have that, I think. I've never been in Amway, but they're sort of like notorious as the most successful U.S.-based network marketing company. So they've got lotions and potions and soaps and like a whole bunch of different stuff.
I think that's the one that my friend's mom sold in high school.
Good chance of it.
They have this.
Well, we're gonna.
They have this
cut right.
one mixture that they say works better than Adderall to give you energy. And I tried it, it did nothing to me.
All right, but anyways, the
most important thing. Let's go to the important things.
Excuse me?
Go ahead, Ricky.
The word you were looking for is pyramid scheme. Now, I'm going to point some other ones
I mean, we
out.
used that word.
I didn't hear it.
We did, but go ahead.
You said scam. I didn't hear pyramid scheme.
Anyway, go ahead. What were you calling about? Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to name 2 more famous examples. One of them actually had some decent stuff. One of them didn't. And I wanted to say a little something about Sarah herself. Now, this one Bonnie will remember. The second one she probably won't. Now, another famous example, and this is almost identical to the stuff that Sarah's been pushing, and that's Avon. And all their stuff was crap. I mean,
really?
It's not crap. Avon's nice. Avon has nice makeup. It's dumb to ever buy something from a company that makes you have to buy it in that stupid fashion, and I don't think that it's going to live on forever.
What about their model, Bonnie?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I just said. I think it's dumb to buy something from a company that has that model, but that doesn't mean their stuff is crap. Their makeup remover is like famously good, like eye makeup remover. Their lotions and stuff like that are nice. Their perfumes are nice.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier, is a lot of the network marketing companies, they've got good products. It's just they charge way too much for them.
Well, that's where the second example comes in, and this may be before Bonnie's time. Now, I know my mother was into it, and I remember as a kid, my old man put a stop to it, and this was really notorious with that model. And they actually did have neat items that they came out with that were really cool, but their model sucked, and nobody made money. It would cost you money, big time, to be part of it, and you never make money, and that's Tupperware.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody
Everybody's heard of that.
Tupperware. And they had some neat stuff.
They did.
You know,
they
but
did.
the
Yeah,
models
that's what's the old saying was the Tupperware party. This is kind of what started
It was brutal. It was brutal. And it was a whole, it was like a little world unto itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the culty aspect. Okay, so the whole world unto itself. This is the cult aspect of the network marketing. Tupperware was huge in the 70s and the 80s, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. And then what ended up happening was what the network marketing companies always said to their distributors that you weren't allowed to do. There's a whole rule book. Whenever you join a network marketing company, you may remember this, Bonnie, from the one that you were in, where they'll tell you the things you're not allowed to do as a distributor. And there are some that will make exception to this, but generally they will tell you you're not allowed to advertise your business. You're not allowed to sell the products in your store. If you have like let's say you happen to have your own store in whatever town you live in, you're not allowed to sell the products.
And that's where I'm going with this, Ian, in the end. See, I've listened to these calls, because I listen every night, and I memorize everything I hear generally. Now, some things I've been hearing now, Sarah, not talking about travel light cameras. She's talking about her marketing stuff. Now, you did warn her at a point, but what's interesting is she pointed out that the owner of the company's a Mormon. Then I remember she was talking to the captain the one night. She said, Con Richard, and given $500 to buy a prayer. But now she's talking about going into Mormonism and talking into it all that. Now, the question is, how much of this is her just being involved in Mormonism because of this company, or more to just be involved kind of pushing the marketing?
I don't know. That is an interesting question. I didn't make the connection. I didn't remember the detail. Well, thank you, Ricky, for that, and thank you for the call tonight.
No doubt.
I appreciate it. I didn't make that connection. I didn't recall that the owner of the company that Sarah is working for, without saying she's working for it, is apparently a Mormon, and now all of a sudden Sarah's interested in that.
It's weird, though, because, she does have other reasons to be interested in it. Like, she's already been interested in Christianity, even though I think she says she doesn't consider herself a Christian, but
she's been to a Christian church before.
Goes to Christian churches in her town, and she also listens to Joyce Myers on TV, and she also has dipped her toes into other religions. So it's not really surprising to me that she would be like, these people I know are Mormons, and now I'm interested in it too. She's not someone who's like, I don't know. But I was actually interested and forgot to ask Ricky what he meant. What does he mean that Richard paid $500 for a prayer?
I don't know.
Is that a Mormon thing?
I don't remember that call, so I can't speak to that.
Well, they said it was on Captain's Night, so.
That would be why. All right. So Sarah did call in about an interesting issue, which is this Federal Trade Commission lawsuit against Amazon. They're saying that the company tricked people into signing up for Prime and then made it hard to cancel. And Bonnie, you had an experience with an Amazon product with a Kindle where you're still having trouble apparently canceling the service that you had, the automatic re-up will give you more credits
Kindle
each
Unlimited.
month. Yeah, per month service. And do you think that you need the government to help you here, Bonnie?
No, I think I need to just call customer service. I was already kind of like, okay, when we canceled it, I was like, I canceled it, right? It wasn't like I was sure that I did, but I was still kind of like, what the, when it came back on. It made it very confusing. There wasn't just a big red button that says cancel your subscription. I mean,
right.
There's probably lots of people who seriously can't lose this next $10, and they thought they canceled it, and then what do you know, next month it comes out anyway. They got to call the company and like ask them to give the $10 back because they didn't mean to do that, and hopefully they'll do it.
Yeah,
it's
I
sad.
don't know. Prime, according to the story here, this is Slate.com. They asked a little bit about what this is about. What is the lawsuit essentially based on? And they mentioned the price here, $139 service. That's for the year, I think. that get you access to all of Amazon streaming and music and the fast shipping, for the free, 2-day, I think, shipping that the suit, or at least it was, I don't know if it still is. The suit alleges that Amazon makes it super difficult to cancel. It takes somewhere between 6 or 7 clicks. You have to find where on the website. My favorite detail, actually, says the author, is that internally at Amazon, they refer to it as the Iliad process, referring to Homer's Iliad, the epic poem about the Trojan War, because apparently it is just as epic to try and cancel Prime.
That's I don't know, that's a long-winded explanation for this joke we say all the time.
Dark patterns are apparently discussed in the suit. What are they? Well, they say there are ways the companies design their interfaces to nudge you in the way they want. When you're going through and clicking on something, it might say, are you really sure you don't want to add this other thing to your cart? Or maybe you'd like this upgrade to faster shipping. The suit said that Amazon is constantly nudging people into Prime because it knows that once you're in Prime, you're not very likely to cancel. Well, one of the reasons for that is probably because people really like it. If you're an Amazon, look, I don't own stock in Amazon, okay, but obviously they're very popular. I've made many purchases there over the years, despite whatever issues they may have, because it's convenient. People buy on Amazon, and it's not always cheaper. Okay, but it is convenient. You still should price around. You still should look for other options.
It's cheapest most of the time, but you're right that sometimes you can
always.
Look around and find out that's not.
We got Valentina for half the price somewhere else.
It's shocking too because this never happens. This wasn't just, we got Valentina for half the price at Walmart.com. No, it was a small, not chain store in San Antonio that shipped to us for cheaper than. I'm just rambling about this because it's weird. Usually Amazon would have a much cheaper price than that.
And it was awesome. I love Valentina hot sauce. Anyway, so the reason why people don't cancel isn't necessarily because it's difficult, but because they're probably happy with the service. They get the music, they get the other bonuses, and they get free shipping. And so it's it adds up. If you buy enough stuff from Amazon in 1 year and you're paying shipping a lot, then it'll pay for itself. So they say Amazon knows that once it gets you, it gets to keep you. They also know that Prime users are much more likely to do a lot of their spending on Amazon. That's true. I think that's absolutely true because people, in their mind, they think, well, I got free shipping, so even if it costs a little bit more, it's still worth buying, right? Because you're not having to pay the shipping cost there. As Amazon says, Prime users buy about double the amount of stuff that non-Prime users do. And again, they're choosing to do that, right? That doesn't mean they're getting ripped off. It means that they feel like they're taking advantage of a good deal. They're getting this Prime thing. So let's see. On the one hand, it might seem strange to bring a lawsuit if, as Amazon says, the vast majority like Prime and keep it. But on the other hand, the FTC is taking close aim at businesses offering subscriptions that are easy to get into and tough to get out of. What other steps has the agency taken in this direction? The difficult to cancel thing has been a main focus of the FTC under its current chairman, Lina Khan, or boss, or whatever, boss man. They have brought a bunch of cases against other companies that make it hard to cancel as well.
Are these people going to say that they actually called customer service and couldn't cancel, though? Because I'm sure that's what I have to do for Kindle Unlimited. Mm-hmm. It's just that it sucks. I don't like calling customer service, waiting all day, and then finally figuring it out.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you could cancel if you were a little less lazy, like me, I don't think the government should be able to take money from them.
They proposed a rule earlier this year. They want companies to make it as easy for consumers to cancel a subscription as it is for them to sign up. If it takes you one click to sign up for something, it should only take you one click to cancel it.
That's stupid.
So with Prime, even though about 90% of people stay, the FTC is, quote, looking out for those 10% of people who do want to cancel, unquote. So this is obviously a pro-government website. Slate.com loves themselves the state.
It's not like I love corporations, but, have a little self-responsibility.
Right.
When I said I was going to get in on this lawsuit, I was joking, but I do see where people are coming from, that it's hard and confusing to cancel these things. Mine wasn't with Prime. In fact, since I canceled Prime a year ago, I don't remember any issue canceling Prime. If it's just that it takes 8 clicks...
Oh, 6 to 7 clicks, you poor thing.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
In the Amazon Kindle thing, it's so confusing because it goes back and forth. Anytime you want to buy a book from Kindle, even it goes back and forth between like you can do this on the Amazon app on your phone. Oh no, you can't do this function on the Amazon app on your phone. You got to do it on your Kindle, and back and forth.
That sounds annoying.
And there's something like that going on with it, where I was like pretty sure I canceled it, but I also kind of thought seemed kind of weird. But I was pretty sure I canceled it.
Didn't feel right.
Yeah, just something didn't feel right, even though I was pretty sure I canceled it, and I didn't apparently.
Yeah, I understand the appeal of what they're saying here, but I also understand why a company would want to retain your business. And so, like, it's not just online things, it's everything that is a subscription. If you try to cancel your cell phone service, if you try to cancel your cable service.
I just remembered something. Whenever I tried to cancel Amazon Prime last, and I didn't the first time, it was annoying. It went through. I got the 1 year charge, which is like, I don't know, $60 or something. I called them and said like, hey, I thought I canceled this, and they gave me my money back. So if this is the case that it is hard, and then they'll give you your money back, you have no case. If you can call customer service and say, hey, give me my money back. You just have to make us
think about it, right?
Yeah.
The number here is 603-283-6160. You can share your thoughts. Maybe you want to share your cancellation story. Was it a nightmare? This is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. In addition to being one of the world's first cryptocurrencies, Dash was the first crypto project to have a decentralized autonomous organization that to this day continues to improve and promote Dash. Every month, 10% of the mining rewards go into a treasury. Anyone with one Dash to spend can put forward a proposal to the Dash masternodes to vote on. The masternodes vet the proposals and decide which ones move forward and are funded by the Treasury. In fact, that's exactly how we got this sponsorship. Nowadays, DAOs are plentiful, but Dash paved the way by doing it first, nearly a decade ago. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Nick Harper. A missile strike on a Ukrainian restaurant and shopping precinct has left at least 2 people dead and 22 injured. The eastern city of Kramatorsk was targeted, with Ukraine's interior ministry saying people may still be trapped under the rubble of the buildings. Meanwhile, Belarus's president, Alexander Lukashenko, says that the leader of the Wagner mercenary group has landed in the country's capital, Minsk. Yevgeny Prigozhin agreed to leave Russia following a failed mutiny on Saturday. Disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein's suicide followed a series of negligent behaviours and mismanagement at a federal jail in Manhattan. That's the findings of a US Justice Department Inspector General's report released nearly 4 years after his death. FSN's Gabrielle Fami reports from New York.
It was an environment in which Epstein had every opportunity to kill himself. Jail staff allowed him to hoard extra blankets and left him alone in his cell for a full day, despite the fact he had tried to hang himself a few days before. 66-year-old Epstein was eventually found dead inside his cell with a bedsheet tied around his neck. Though the Inspector General found a succession of circumstances that made it easy for Epstein to kill himself, he didn't uncover evidence that contradicted the FBI's finding that he died by his own hand. Epstein had been awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving underage girls and was facing up to 45 years in prison. The Inspector General referred 2 jail supervisors for criminal prosecution. They were caught falsifying records and lying to investigators, but prosecutors declined to bring charges. Gabrielle Fami, New York.
A number of US media outlets have obtained an audio recording that appears to reveal Donald Trump looking through classified documents after he left the White House. The former president has pleaded not guilty to federal charges relating to his handling of sensitive material. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has issued an alert after a number of cases of malaria were detected in Texas and Florida. It's the first time in 20 years that the mosquito-borne infection is spreading locally in the United States, and experts are warning that things could get worse. FSN's Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
In the past 2 months, 4 cases of malaria have been found in Florida and 1 in Texas. The CDC believes all of them were locally acquired and warned case numbers could rise during the busy summer travel season. Malaria is mostly found in tropical climates and is spread by mosquitoes. Experts say as global temperatures rise, so too could the number of infections. Symptoms include fever, chills, and in severe cases, difficulty breathing. According to the World Health Organization, nearly 620,000 people globally died from malaria in 2021.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Yep, it is Free Talk Live. The phones are open. If you want to join us here, the number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. You can join us online anytime. We do have our own social media platform over at social.freetalklive.com. And you can interact there with other Free Talk Live hosts, as well as some of the listeners to the show and other people that maybe don't know a whole lot about us. The server is an open server. However, we do ask for a quick statement about why you want to join, when you join. That way we can trap the spammers and keep them out. So head over there to social.freetalklive.com. You can get signed up. Ian and Bonnie here in the studio tonight. And let's go back to your phone calls and thoughts. We've been talking about the Amazon. There's a suit. The FTC, the federal gang, is suing Amazon over supposedly deceptive practices. But is that really true? Go ahead, Tim. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hello?
Hey, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
I would like to cancel my subscription, please. I'd like to cancel my subscription with the government.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, you know what? You're making a good point, because if the government goes after Amazon for this, that's kind of the pot calling the kettle black, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And it's funny how the federal government doesn't know how much money they spent. The $6 billion, they made an accounting error.
Yeah, the accounting error that is going to allow them to send another $6 billion over to Ukraine and the government there.
Yep.
Yeah.
But every year they know how much money we owe them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you get it wrong, whatever that number is, then you get to go to prison. Yeah, I think you make a great point here tonight, Tim, and it's well taken that good luck canceling the government, right? Like, oh, well, yeah, you can't do that. You've got to vote, and you got to vote harder, and you got to work at organizing and try to change the system from the inside. Whereas these other companies, if you don't want to deal with them, you just stop doing business with them. You walk away from it. You never go through their doors ever again. You don't have an obligation to use their services. But with the government, if you don't pay for their services, whether you use them or not, they will kill you. Thanks for the call tonight, Tim. Great point. Really appreciate it. Let's talk to Mr. Butt. He's in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live.
Dr. Butt.
Dr. Butt now. Okay, that's an improvement.
What'd you call me? How do you get?
Do you have to say it every time?
But comma doctor.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Do you have to say Mr. Butt every time?
No, you got called Dr. Butt. You got an upgrade.
I am a doctor. They're very good, Bonnie. Thank you very much. But I go by my rank, major pain in the butt.
Nah, major butt. Too many words. Major butt. Okay, that's fine. I'll take that one.
I have once again transitioned. I'm now a major beta male in the butt.
I don't think going from a normal male to a beta male is a transition. Well, I guess it is a type of transition. You're right.
It is.
Do you become a beta male, or were you born a beta male?
Both. I was born a beta male, and I also became one. So.
Okay.
Anyway,
why would you do that? Like, why would you want to be a beta male?
I don't know. I don't think that maybe people want to be a beta male. So anyway, in a future date, I will tell you how I spent, and I am going to file an FTC complaint and a federal lawsuit if I have to. Verizon, I spent 14 hours over the course of 7 phone calls with Verizon, and they remedied absolutely nothing that they said that they would remedy. But what I was calling about is...
Were you trying to cancel your
he
service?
He told us about this before, yeah. Sucks.
No. It's a whole bunch of intricate things, and I'll give you the bullet points another time because I don't want to do it now. What I want to talk about now is what I called two nights ago. You and Arya didn't let me get to the question of law that I have about your court case. And then last night you blocked me, Ian. You blocked me. I called, and you blocked me. So
no, I don't think you got blocked. You just didn't get in. What were you going to say? Go ahead.
When I was on hold for a total of like an hour and a half, I didn't get in. Yep. So question about your court case is now we can't really answer it in your case, Ian, because your sentencing hasn't come. But Arya's sentencing did, and there was a monetary aspect. I believe the fine was $5,000.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And what I didn't remember hearing anything about it. And normally the government tries to seize all your assets, and I know they did seize assets that you had in your possession when they raided your house illegally. But did they seize assets from Arya?
I think they ended up with some Bitcoin from her.
Maybe some gold backs. I don't remember.
Yeah, I mean they took stuff from her house, but they have returned her computer. They've returned some of the things that they took that didn't have anything to do with the sales of Bitcoin. And then they did seize, I believe, some amount of Bitcoin. It's in the government paperwork.
Well, it's in the government paperwork. How much is it?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I just honestly don't remember.
I think it was a couple Bitcoin or something like that.
A couple bit is so okay because they didn't return it, and that's no,
I believe I believe Arya has forfeited that Bitcoin at this point.
Okay, that's what I was wondering is if there was aside from the fine, if there was a loss of assets in addition to the fine, which in itself is like another fine.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I actually do remember for sure that there is because she was talking on there about how she gave them the password instead of having to make them make her.
Yeah, I think she thought it would, go easy. They'd go easier on her if she just, let them into to her wallet or something like that. So, yes, that is the answer.
Oh, okay. And so that was several Bitcoin. So it's a loss of whatever the value of a Bitcoin is.
Right now, that's about $30,000 per coin. So if it was a couple of them, then you're talking $60,000.
Right. Okay. And is there? I mean, we all know that that'll never come back. But was there any official talk on the record in the courts about the return of assets?
As I said, she did get a couple things back. I know she got back a computer this week and something else. I think they had one of her video game consoles.
I think
she got that back. So yeah, she did get some.
But not monetary assets.
No, of course not. They're going to try to seize anything monetary, and then when the government, what happens, as I understand it, is when the government takes your stuff. They will then say, this is all the result of the criminal activity. And if you want to challenge that, you got to file a separate lawsuit, basically, to argue that no, it was not in point of fact related to a criminal activity. It existed before that, or whatever you would argue in that case. And Arya did not challenge that in that way, so that means they get to take everything.
Got it.
Yep. Thanks for the call tonight. All right, so the number here is 603-283-6160. We were talking earlier in the show tonight about AI, artificial intelligence, and apparently now an open source model that has resulted in somebody creating a sex robot of some sort. And this story here from the Washington Post, the open source, this is one of these text chats, right? So we're not talking about, even though they have now AI art that can generate naked people that don't actually exist, and that's actually a whole other story. This is about being able to have a discussion with this online thing. So it's called Allie. That's the name of it. Purports to be 18 years old with long brown hair and quote-unquote tons of sexual experience. She lives for attention, and she'll share details of her escapades, apparently for free. Allie's creator who spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of harming his professional reputation, said commercial chatbots such as Replica and ChatGPT are heavily censored and can't offer the type of sexual conversations that he desires. With open source alternatives, many based on Meta's Llama model, the man said he can build his own uninhibited conversation partners. He said it's rare to have the opportunity to experiment with state-of-the-art in any field. He agreed, or rather argued, that open source technology benefits society by allowing people to build products that cater to their preferences without corporate guardrails. He says, I think it's good to have a safe outlet to explore. Can't really think of anything safer than text-based role play against a computer with no humans actually involved, he said. On YouTube, influencers offer tutorials on how to build uncensored chatbots. Some are based on a modified version of Llama called Alpaca AI, which Stanford University researchers released in March, only to remove it a week later over concerns of cost and, quote, the inadequacies of our content filters. So they let this thing out, and then they tried to pull it back in. But the thing is, with the internet, once a thing is out there, it's really kind of hard to undo that thing. It's hard to unring the bell, as what was Streisand? I think they call it the Streisand effect. You know, especially if you try to make a big deal about deleting things from the internet, then they really go crazy. A spokesperson for Meta said the particular model referenced in the YouTube videos called GPT-4 X Alpaca, quote, was obtained and made public outside of our approval process. So again, this goes back to what I was saying earlier, where this language model was released without necessarily their consent, but again, once it's out there, good luck getting it back. These open source AI models and the creative applications that build on them are often published on Hugging Face, a platform for sharing and discussing AI and data science projects. So, in fact, Hugging Face I've actually seen before because that's where the Stable Diffusion releases come out. It's kind of like a GitHub, I think. It's like a place where you can share code and you can actually run tests and things like that.
Somebody was going to invent this eventually. It's just like
a sex bot, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't get why this is newsworthy. It's like
it's because it's got sex in the title, and that's going to get clicks. It's going to get people interested, and if that gets people interested in AI, then good for them. I mean, there are a bunch of interesting things you can do with AI.
I think men just don't have good enough imagination.
That may be the case. I don't know, and it would be interesting to see if women actually use these sex applications as well. It would be curious to see what the demographic breakdown is.
I'm sure there's women that are lonely and sad enough to do it too.
During a Thursday House Science Committee hearing, Clem DeLange, Hugging Face's CEO, urged Congress to consider legislation supporting and incentivizing open source models, which he argued are, quote, extremely aligned with American values. In an interview after the hearing, although I don't think that we need the government to fund open source projects, that seems like it would be a mistake. Yeah. They seem to be doing just fine on their own.
Yeah.
DeLange acknowledged that open source tools can be abused. He noted a model intentionally trained on toxic content. You knew this was coming. GPT-4chan that Hugging Face had removed from their platform. But he said he believes open source approaches allow for both greater innovation and more transparency and inclusivity than corporate-controlled models. And that is true. I just wish that they would leave these edge cases, if you want to call them that, alone. Leave the guy with the sex bot alone. Leave the 4chan one alone.
Yeah.
Whatever it is that these people, so somebody's going to make one that's like that knows everything about anime or whatever, right? Like, these things are going to happen. Let them do whatever it is they want to do. I mean, you cannot suppress this. The 4chaners, now that I know that it exists.
You can just go on 4chan and see the...
Just search for it. I'll find it.
No, I just meant you can just go on 4chan and see a bunch of toxicness if you want. Well, I'm assuming 4chan. I've never been there.
Well, this would let you talk to the toxic. It would let you interact with something that is completely toxic. Like one of our
I was going to say, you could just do that on the Free Talk Live Matrix server. That's what my point is. It's like, I don't know. It's not that interesting. It's not something that the government needs to protect people from.
No, certainly not. He says, I would argue that actually most of the harm today is done by black boxes, referring to AI systems whose inner workings are opaque rather than open source, which of course has been my critique of OpenAI, which is, again, a falsely named company. because they're not open. They're not open source at all. And I think that's a huge problem. Hugging Faces rules don't prohibit AI projects that produce sexually explicit outputs, but they do prohibit sexual content that involves minors or that is, quote, used or created for harassment, bullying, or without explicit consent of the people represented. Earlier this month, the New York-based company published an update emphasizing consent as a core value guiding how people can use the platform. As Google and OpenAI have grown more secretive about their most powerful AI models, Meta has emerged as a surprising corporate champion of open source AI. In February, it released Llama, a large language model that's less powerful than GPT-4, which is its competitor, but more customizable and cheaper to run. This thing can run on your laptop at this point, and it's just going to get cheaper as time goes on. Meta initially withheld key parts of its code and planned to limit access to authorized researchers, but by early March, those parts, known as the model's weights, had leaked onto public forums, making Llama freely accessible to all. And I do recall testing this one at the time, and it wasn't that great. It wasn't as bad as it had been, the Facebook one had been in the past, but who knows where it's at these days, because it's been 3 months and a lot can happen in AI development in just 3 months' time. Since then, it has become perhaps the most popular open source model for technologists, but it's not the only one. In April, a software firm called Databricks released their open source model called DALL-E 2.0. And last month, a team based in Abu Dhabi released an open source model called Falcon that rivals Llama in performance. So it's nice to hear that we're seeing multiple competing models out there in the open source AI language world. So there's a computer science professor at MIT who says she's in favor of open source models, but with limits. She says it's important to make the architecture behind powerful chatbots public because that allows people to scrutinize how they're built. For example, if a medical chatbot was created on open source technology, researchers could see if the data it's trained on incorporated sensitive patient information, something that would not be possible on chatbots using closed software. But she does acknowledge that this comes with a risk. If people can easily modify language models, they can quickly create chatbots and image makers that churn out disinformation, hate speech, and inappropriate material of high quality.
We need to make sure if something is giving health recommendations that we need to make sure that the colleges who decide what is true and what is not true are the ones that get to put the information into it.
Right. They wouldn't want the chatbot to recommend somebody not get a vaccine and instead, try ivermectin or something like that. So, yeah, this she says there should be regulations governing who can modify these products, such as a certifying or credentialing process. And that is a terrible idea. Unfortunately, though, the federal government is right now considering. They've been interviewing these AI researchers, and they're already kicking around ideas of how to regulate AI.
Wow.
And I think that's a really scary idea. That if the government gets AI, and they're going to, they're probably already researching it. They're probably already signing deals with Microsoft and Google and all that. They're going to use it for murder. They're going to use it for things like pre-crime, like trying to identify someone who might commit a crime. So the FBI can start looking into those people. They're going to use it for the military to target people and bomb people and, do all kinds of destructive things.
Right now they're doing basically pre-crime where somebody isn't even thinking of how to, fund terrorism and they go suggest it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Like that teenager that we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. So anyway, she goes on to blather about how they need to have more. We license people to be able to use a car. We need to do a similar thing for AI. She essentially says.
You don't need to do it for cars either.
Let's see what else. Another guy at a capital firm in London noted that many of the tech industry's greatest advances over the decades have been made possible by open source technologies, including today's AI language models. He says if there's only a few companies building the most powerful AI models, they're only going to be targeting the biggest use cases, he said, adding the diversity of inquiry is an overall boon for society. Gary Marcus, cognitive scientist who testified to Congress on AI regulation in May, countered that accelerating AI innovation might not be a good thing, considering the risks the technology could pose to society. Well, what risks are we talking about here? That somebody will use an AI to write an online scam? I mean, that's one of the things they mentioned earlier. Okay, yeah, that can easily be done already.
Be done without an AI.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess the proposal is that AI would make them better. Because a lot of the online like scam emails that you get, you can tell they're written by somebody who doesn't have a mastery of the English language.
Yep.
But if they have a robot do it, then it'll be written better than they could write it if they're born in India.
I think the answer is just still people need to educate. Need better education. It's public schools failing that people are dumb enough to get an email that says, "I am from a government entity," doesn't even mention which one, "and I need you to send me $900,000 right now because you owe taxes." That's a failing of the public school system. That
Buyer
people are dumb
beware.
enough that would happen.
And the failure of the parents who are relying on a public school system.
Yep.
Buyer beware. This is something people need to know. You have to be careful out there on the internet. You have to be suspicious ever so more now than in the past. And so AI is here. It's coming. Even these open source people are still trying to lock it down by restricting the things that it can talk about and all that. But as we're seeing, people are able to roll their own. It just means they got to know what they're doing. They got to be better at programming. And we're going to see these options out there. They may be harder to find, but the people over at 4chan are going to know right where to look to do this stuff. They're probably some of the ones who are doing it. And I support them. Look, I'm not in, I have no interest in using a sex bot per se. But I'm glad that exists because it is evidence that this is an open technology and those things should exist. Whether or not it says a statement about society and lonely people or whatever.
I think I'm not saying that it shouldn't exist, but I think it sucks that we're at this state where people want to use that, because my huge thing is I don't like people who are that antisocial. Like, that's a huge problem. Like, our society has caused us to be, torn away from nature. And I think that the next step that is really bad is people being torn away from other people. Like, people who are antisocial are more likely to become sociopaths.
But think about it from this perspective. There's always been lonely people out there, right? Like, whether it's the society we're in now or 30 years ago. 30 years ago, the lonely guys would go to like strip clubs and spend a bunch of money to get the attention of a woman, which isn't real, right? Like, you're just paying her to give you attention. Or some of them would call what they called 1-900 numbers, which probably still exists, but I don't know. They used to be advertised like in the backs of magazines and newspaper adult sections, and you'd have to pay like $1 a minute or whatever it was, 50 cents a minute or something like that. And you'd talk to a real human.
At least they had to have a job to have money to do it. Now they can just not have a job, get money from the welfare, from the government, and just sit on their computer and talk to Allie about her sexual experiences.
Yeah, but at least it won't break their bank account if that's what they're doing, because these guys would pay a lot of money.
They have a lot more important stuff they're breaking by being this failed as a human being than money. Money's not the most important thing on the planet.
Let's go to the phones here. Kadu is on the line in Connecticut. Go ahead, Kadu.
Hey, I just wanted to say to David in New Mexico, you were definitely not blocked, because I am Free Talk Live's favorite caller, and I had a hard time getting on last night. So it's important for all of us to remember that the world does not revolve around any specific one of us.
Yeah, that's true. There was actually a full phones by the end of that show, so there were several people that did not
I
get
even
on.
suggested to Ian that he should hang up on some of the regulars to give room for better callers, and he refused to.
Yeah, I did not. So
let's not make everything about ourselves.
Oh, that's what David loves to do.
That's what most people tend to do. I mean, it is your life, so it is kind of all about you. So I get that, but it doesn't play very well when you actually say those things, and you get all uppity and upset about not getting your time. We don't owe you anything. Okay, just to be clear, we do open phones.
Kadu? No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean you, meaning anybody out there. We do this show because we enjoy it.
Ian, I stand corrected. Don't let everyone know it's all about yourself.
That's good advice, Kadu. Thank you for the call tonight, man.
Ian
I
never
appreciate
acts
it.
that way, so You never act like it's all about you.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's whether or not you want to act that way or not.
So you do think that, but you just don't want to act like
everybody. It's all about everybody. Everybody's life is all about them, right? Like if you don't take care of yourself first, then you can't take care of anyone else.
Okay, but I think that people mean something else when they say it's all about me. Like forget
the world
everyone
around
else.
you?
Yeah, that's what he means. Like forget everyone else. I'm more important.
I get where they're coming from, but it definitely sounds really bad. We are out of time for tonight.
Wow, you do have a little Leo in you. This is the most Leo you've ever acted.
Out of time for tonight. Back tomorrow. You can join us online between now and then over at freetalklive.com. Download archives and so many more things that you can do there. Totally free. We'll see you tomorrow. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that